Sorry. So it's 7:32. Welcome to the meeting. Happy post Thanksgiving. We'll start with the pledge and go into special meeting. We have one resolution on the tonight's immediate different one from the audience, the live or by the Zoom call, which is the time to provide that resolution. Anybody online?
No, yes, there is. I'm sorry. If there's anyone online that would like to raise their hand if they'd like to speak on this topic. No one has raised their virtual hand, Mayor.
Thank you. Resolution A, authorize purchase of 2023 protector. Resolved that the village manager is authorized to sign the November 22, 2023 quote for new Holland order for 305 West Main Street in Holland, Pennsylvania, for the purchase of the 2023 protector utility AWB. And be further resolved that the village manager is authorized to sign the November 22, 2023 proposal for RFC Emergency Lighting and Services LLC, PO Box 209. Fire Cook County, New York, for equipment to be added to the 2023 police interceptor. Do I have a motion? So moved. Any comments? Are you here to speak about that, or are you here for something else? Okay. So just so the public knows, this is a replacement to the two vehicles. A replacement for a vehicle, police vehicle. There was a serious car chase. A few gentlemen stole an ambulance and were driving to a number of municipalities, including Los Angeles police. They did a recent job chasing them. They were going to pass it on to another municipality. This involved different municipalities and different agencies, county, etc., and state, because they stole an ambulance. But they were also, from what I understand, allegedly very stoned. They were major doses of drugs. Driving at one point against the traffic, and he was on the spring on the sawmill against traffic. Telling me that in fact no one was killed, including our own officers, and so they did an amazing job. And in that pursuit of chasing the car, police cars were damaged, which really, well, one was damaged beyond the one's getting fixed, and the other one's getting replaced. Three vehicles, sorry. And so this was in the news, I don't want to it, but I do want people who pay a lot of taxes here to understand that it is not a right plan to provide or care a number of police cars. This one is doing the budget, but this is being a police officer, serious job. And these kinds of cases, it's not right. They're very grateful and nobody was killed as this happened in the past. When people was taken to the hospital because he drove beat, and our prospect saved his life. So in some ways the story ends well, except that it follows which prohibition. So I just wanted to put that on the comments section. All those in favor? Sorry. Vehicle five, the thing up for use vehicle 22 to 28, 13, 28. All those in favor? Motion to adjourn to work session. Second. All in favor? Aye. And work session. Do you have any announcements?
Mayor, I cannot hear you. If you can speak directly into the microphone and look, and everyone put their hands away from the microphone, it seems to be garbling. So if you don't mind, that way we can hear you, please.
I'm wondering, at the rock star here, I got my, on the mic here. Can you hear me now? No. Well, I can't get any closer to them.
I can say that I understand that it's working on the cable channel if folks want to tune in there on Zoom. If you want to hear it clearly, you can turn into our cable channel, which has it clearly.
Oh. Okay, so, Jamie, can you hear me? No.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, if you're gonna, what is it doing? If you're gonna text me, because I don't think you can hear us, so if you can, I see you nodding. If you're at home, is there a possibility of driving into this room is not going to work?
I'm sorry, what you just said was garbled. Joyce, were
Okay.
you able to hear her?
Right.
No, I could hear she was saying something, but I could not understand it.
Yeah, same.
We're trying to make a microphone. Is this better? Okay, so it's better?
It's better, but I would say to speak slowly or just not at a rapid pace. Because the more regulated it is, the easier it is to understand.
You can hear me, not yes, she said. You're okay. Joyce is gonna come to the meeting, but she's, I don't know what she's looking for.
Can't talk slower, but I can. Okay, the headphones last night too. All right, Jesse, do you need me speaking into these mics too?
Yeah,
Whatever you're using right now is perfect.
Fabulous. Okay, we'll figure it out. Let's see, something needs to be fixed. All right. So we're in announcements. Sorry. Well, we haven't really had. Okay, I got it. I got it. We're in announcements. So Dana, do you have something? We'll start to my right. No, it isn't. All right. Okay. Thanks. All right, Dana. Do you have any announcements? Thank you. Thanks, Manny.
We have a couple of business anniversaries. For some reason, I've become the official anniversary person, but Bazaar Salon is celebrating its 10th year, 10 years in Ossining, in the bank building there on the Five Corners intersection. And on Friday, they're having a ribbon cutting and a little gathering. And then Tasty Table up at the other end of town has been in business here for 5 years. And so make sure you stop by there for brunch or to say hello. But I think that especially at this time of year, we can really appreciate the hard work and sacrifice that our local businesses make. And so let's support them as much as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This side of the table? Got nothing? Okay, December 1st, Friday. We have. Okay, I'm getting to it. Look at you all excited. What's happening?
no, we both said relighting.
Okay. So please join, the village does a beautiful job on Friday, this Friday, December 1st. I can't believe it's December. For a wonderful tree lighting, surprise at the end of it. It's the same thing every year for those of you, but you know, I'm sure some kids are listening to this exciting meeting. But there's gonna be hot chocolate, there's a bunch of groups involved, and 6 p.m. Well, somebody show me. What's happening? Like we're having multi-communication. No, I got that. Yeah. I'm just going through my list. So there's gonna be a tree lighting, real big family event, Friday, 6 p.m. till about 7:30 or so. And just as Trustee White said, don't hesitate afterwards to stop in for some local food, do some local shopping for the stores that are open, not just on Main Street, but on Spring Street. And also, feel free to have a coffee or a drink at some of our establishments. So looking forward to that. Following that on the Tuesday, the 5th, right? Nope. This Thursday, the 7th, right? I have two events. Even after you showed it to me, unbelievable. For Hanukkah, which starts next week as well, there is we do a beautiful menorah lighting by Chabad of Briarcliff and Ossining. And as always, there will be lots of sweet fried food. What could be better than sugar and fried food? And there will be a menorah lighting. Everyone in the community is encouraged and welcome to come and participate in the festivities. So I hope to see you there. Those are the two items I have. I think we captured that. I do want to say, and it's something I put in my weekly mayor message, really, there are almost too many events in this village because we live in an amazing village of just what I call good old fashioned do-gooders, people who just do good every single day. But in December, there is so much going on at our synagogues, our churches. We have 22 houses of worship in this village of ours, preparing food for the needy, clothing being collected, coats, shoes, all sorts of things are being collected. There is toy drives, there is food drives. Please be on the lookout, both in the web blast done by Jamie Hoffman on our staff that goes out every week, but just in general, please be on the lookout for all the wonderful events of the many nonprofits that are in our community, helping those in need, along with celebrating all the wonderful holidays with your own family. So I think we're ready now to go into our regular meeting. Deputy Mayor has arrived. Do you have any announcements? As yours, none. So we're having problems with Zoom. Joyce, it's back. Okay, so we're not, you fixed it. Fabulous. Fabulous. So, we already did the first special meeting and now we're into the regular and now we're getting into, the meeting. So what do we have next?
Good evening, everyone. First up on the agenda, we have our representatives from Up the River Dispensary. They're looking to establish a cannabis dispensary at 34 Main Street. So this is an opportunity for the board to learn more about their plans and to determine if they would like to express support or concerns to the Office of Cannabis Management. So with that, I'd like to invite our guest up to the microphone.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Got it. Thank
You
you.
can get comfortable, adjust.
Appreciate it.
Uh,
Microphone issues are making me nervous.
No pressure. We need your name, where you're from, your position, etc.
Nope.
And welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Andrew Shriver. I'm an attorney at Prince LaBelle Thai, and I'm representing the Up the River Dispensary Project and its principal, Ryan Logudici. Ryan's going to do most of the speaking. It's, I think, from a business person's perspective and someone kind of who's more local to the community. I really want him to kind of let you know what our thinking is about the dispensary, why we think it's a good location, why we think the plan is a good one. I wanted to give you just a little bit of legal knowledge. I always like to say that my job is to try to make your job easier. And I'll preface what I'll say with, to the extent that there are any issues or concerns that would trigger any hesitation to say to the OCM that the project, seems okay to you. You give us an opportunity to take a look at it, to cure it, fix it, or address those concerns in any way that you feel would be reasonable for us. A little bit of context, just for those of you who aren't familiar, it's a pretty specialized law. It's a pretty brand new law in terms of the regulations implementing them. This is pursuant to Article 76 of the Cannabis Law, where, as you know, I think, it's required that a notice to municipality be given out to say we intend to establish a dispensary at this location. And then the municipality has input as part of its time, place, and manner jurisdiction under the cannabis law. So the purpose of this session is to make sure that we've given you enough information about this. I want to address, in addition to the specifics of the dispensary, some general issues that I know are concerns for this community, and their community has shared concerns by a lot of communities. And in this respect, I'm speaking as an attorney, but kind of also as a parent. I have a kid in college, another one who's a high school senior, and I'm really, really wary about the non-legally sanctioned shops that are selling cannabis products. I know it's a problem here. I know it's a problem in neighboring jurisdictions. And I know that there's frustration that the state hasn't stepped in to intervene in that. There are a lot of reasons why within this 10 minutes, I can't possibly tell you about the difficulties the state's going to have enforcing it. But what I can say is, in the same way that you cannot go into a store now and buy like a bottle of bathtub gin, right? Because there's liquor stores, there's where adults can come in and it's all regulated. Eventually, when the market has created enough opportunity for legal dispensaries, the goal is for the legal dispensaries to supplant the non-legal ones, and to make sure at that point, I mean, quite frankly, the OCM would have the ability, and I think, and would not be criticized for cracking down on illegal shops if those who own those shops have been given an opportunity to enter the market, which is what the state is trying to do. So what we really want to do is be a model and sort of plant our flag here and be that responsible footprint for you. Right. And so when I work with my clients, I come to them as a parent and I say, well, the rules are the rules, and we got to be really strict about it. Right. So that means no access to children. And that's not just something we say. The good news is that the state, by mandate, and even if it weren't a mandate, I would tell my clients, you need to do this anyway. Everything is tracked from the minute that it's gone into the dirt, to the time that it's transported, to the time that it goes to the consumer. If one piece of product gets diverted, one piece, then that is part of the reporting that's instantaneous to the Office of Cannabis Management, and it subjects my client to being shut down. And I'll say rightfully in that situation, right? Because the goal is to be as responsible as possible. All the protocols that you see and you've heard from the responsible dispensaries, we will have in place. We're gonna have security, checking ID. We're gonna have a scan of the ID. It's gonna be tracked in the state system. In terms of cash, I know that that's a concern that's been raised because, it talks about crime rates. That's a problem that we've tackled at this point. People can use ATM cards for transactions. So you can walk in with no cash, walk out with product. That's also going to be true for delivery services. That's all going to be done online, and they're not going to be carrying cash for purposes of exchanging in those transactions. So we're here to get it right. We're going to make sure that the dispensary facade complies with the state requirements, that it be subtle, that we not have anything attractive to children in terms of the advertising of it, the marketing of it. And we're going to ensure also that we're, very respectful of, the kind of needs that you'd look at in terms of zoning, that there's enough space inside the interior of the shop to ensure that there's not loud traffic outside, for example. And that we'll also talk about the parking availability, and we've looked at that too. And we think that all in all, a project that we think can kind of show we're a community that takes this seriously. So with that, I'd like to introduce my client, Ryan.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you guys for listening and hearing me out tonight. Very excited to be here and talk to this board and you, Mayor Levin. I'm going to follow along on the slideshow here on these papers, so I'm not squinting at you guys, but I guess I just say next slide to someone and they'll move forward. So yeah, I'm following along on this presentation we have here about our space at 34 Main Street in Ossining. Like I said, my name is Ryan Lojudici. I am the applicant and the founder of Crown and Gavel LLC, which will be owning and running Up the River Dispensary. A little bit about me. I have a background in the legal cannabis industry. I've been a professional in the industry for a decade now. I've worked and navigated in 6 different states in the legal market, including Colorado, California, Arizona, Massachusetts, Michigan, and then here in New York as well, doing some consulting work for a producer out here. So I'm familiar with numerous different landscapes and states. I have a deep expertise in compliance in cannabis. I've been a compliance consultant for a multi-state operator for 3 years now. I've also done, I've been director of production for a large scale topical company in California. So I've really touched every piece of the supply chain of cannabis over the last decade, and I truly understand what goes into the legal market from seed to sale. Aside from that, I am a native of New York. I'm a native of Croton-on-Hudson. My family still lives there. I celebrated Thanksgiving there last week. And I'm a current resident of Croton right now as well. I just moved back from Los Angeles to pursue this project. So I'm really excited about cannabis in New York and cannabis in this area too. So Ossining, you know, seems like the perfect place for me, and my house is legitimately 6 minutes away from this building right now. And then, yeah, on top of that, I have a large network to ensure that this project will be a success. I'm, you know, kind of like I've been stating, I'm not green in the space. I know what I'm doing and feel like I can really bring success to this project. So we can go to the next slide. So yeah, this is our location right here, 34 Main Street. You can see on the picture it's kind of a small entrance right there, but it is a large 3,600 square foot space, which we feel like is plenty of room for a shop in this area and what we're talking about doing there. You know, the location is great in my opinion because it's a block from the train station, so there'll be plenty of foot traffic and commuters going near there every day. And then that also provides some parking as well. I know and understand that we can go to the next slide actually and talk a little bit more about parking. So yeah, oh, sorry. Never mind. I'll talk about the dispensary a little bit and then I'll talk about the parking situation. So the dispensary, kind of our vision for it right now. We want it to be an upscale environment, somewhere that's welcoming to all to come
Are you on
into.
the right slide or do you want her to move it?
You can go to the next one. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. I apologize for the confusion there.
That's fine.
So yeah, we want the dispensary to have an upscale and classy feel to it, something that welcomes all individuals of the community into it. I've been in numerous dispensaries in numerous states. They are not scary places, and we don't want this one to be either. Like, we want it to be kind of like an upscale wine shop type feel, somewhere where anyone of any background feels comfortable and, most importantly, safe shopping in the dispensary. We see this as a large space and we kind of have a flow worked out for it. Obviously, we'll go into much more depth in this in front of the planning board and share this all openly when we have the actual architectural plans drawn up for this. But we imagine a flow of the way the building is set up, that customers come into a large waiting room, they get checked in, they get ID'd, and then from there, they enter into the showroom or bud room floor, as it's called, kind of make their way around the space and then exit out a separate door back into the waiting area, if you will, and then back out onto the street. So we feel like there's ample space and that we can really do a lot of great things in the space, and so much space actually that we were talking about, you know, maybe including an area talking about cannabis policy reform, education, something that, you know, if someone wants to spend time and learn something about cannabis and, you know, get a little education on it, something beneficial for the consumer, that can be done in the space as well. So that's something we're exploring also. And we can go to the next slide. Okay, so now on the parking. So as you can see from this diagram or this picture on the slideshow, the yellow arrow represents the business currently. Out in the front, there's about 5 parking spaces approximately. Most likely those would be used for employee parking, but of course, this is something we're exploring of, you know, maybe it's better for consumers or customers to use those, but we have those 5 spaces. On top of that, looking at the green arrow, there is a proposal right now from a adjacent business to open some of those spots up in the train station lot as being free nightly spots, I hear. So that would add some parking to the space. And then we do have the train station lot right down the block there. I understand it is permitted parking during the week and during the days, but that nightly and holiday parking is free there. Weekends, apologies. But yeah, that's some of our busiest times, honestly, we foresee. So that could work out to our advantage there. And there is an additional 5 spaces in the lot, like I mentioned, that I believe no permit is required for, that could be used for parking. And then just in general, the streets around it seem to have ample 2-hour parking, which is obviously more than enough time for someone, you know, shopping in the dispensary to get in, get their product and get out. And we feel there's enough parking in the area to handle the flow we see coming into the space. So we could go to the next one. So I want to talk about security a little bit. Obviously, this is a concern with any municipality looking at opening a shop for the first time. You know, it's talks of, you know, people are concerned about, is this going to cause crime? Is there going to be shady people hanging out? So we will always have a security professional on the premise at all times. You know, this person will check people in, they will monitor security. On top of that, you know, the state will require it, but we also have a commitment to security where we would have kind of a man trap entry, meaning someone comes in, they gets checked in the front door, and then they'll be buzzed into the area once they're checked and made sure that they're who they say they are and can shop there legally. And then another thing the state requires is we will have a very robust camera system with a 45-day backup to it. There's other states that require a little more time, a little less, but we will adhere to that regulation and all regulations presented by the state to ensure it's a safe environment for people to shop in. And of course, any other compliance standards that need to be met will be like rigorously adhered to in the space. So obviously, and a full security plan will be presented to the state and approved before opening. To just give you a little background on the process there of opening. So next slide, please. Okay, so talking about cannabis compliance a little bit. As Andrew kind of mentioned, there is a state track and trace system that is being discussed. So that means every product that comes into the dispensary in a legal shop will be put into this system, meaning from the time the plant was grown to going through processing to distribution channels all the way to the shop and then sold to the final consumer, that product is tracked in that system. And like Andrew was saying as well, if there's one discrepancy there, the state will know about it and it would risk whoever license it is where that discrepancy happens. So there's a very robust system. This system exists in every other legal state there's been in. I have numerous years experience with navigating these systems and working with them. So I'm more than confident that we can, you know, keep our compliance and track and trace system fully updated and as compliant as possibly can be. On top of that, we will also have a third-party point of sale system, which would also help with tracking products as they get sold. Right now, I believe we're talking to one of them called Dutchie. There's numerous of these I guess products or systems around that exist already for dispensaries and are set up for the cannabis industry and have been tested in many other states. So we will be certainly tracking products and every piece of cannabis that moves through the dispensary to the kind of the maximum ability that we have. On top of that, obviously age verification, Andrew talked about it, I've talked about it. We will have someone checking IDs at the door, of course, so that no one under 21 gets any access to cannabis out of our shop, the way it is in every other legal state and the way it should be moving forward. And then any other state laws, of course, will be adhered to rigorously as well. And all employees will have some training and compliance and understand to a basic degree what needs to be done in terms of from a legal standpoint, a compliance standpoint, to make sure we are running a facility that feels safe, compliant, and completely above board to anyone who shops there. Next slide, please. So Andrew talked about this mostly, so I'll run through it pretty quick. I don't want to take up too much of everyone's time, but let's just talking about legal dispensaries versus illegal smoke shops. We're calling them smoke shops, but this could be any shop. It could be a bodega on the corner that's selling cannabis to consumers or anywhere that's not a licensed facility. What you get there is, you know, on a shop like we're proposing, you have regulation that we have to stick to or we lose our license. We work very hard to get this license. We put a lot of money into it, and it's frankly a passion of mine to open this shop. So it's something I don't take lightly and nothing that I would actively be trying to lose to make a quick buck or something like that, to not follow the rules of the state and of the town, of what the town feels is necessary. So regulation will be strictly adhered to at a shop like mine versus, you know, a corner store that's selling weed under the counter, basically. Again, age verification is very strict. These illegal shops are just allowing anyone kind of who probably looks, you know, over 16, maybe even younger, just to buy, whatever they have on hand. And that certainly will not be the case at a store like mine. Quality and safety, this is an important one. All the products that will be sold at a dispensary, a legal dispensary, will be tested for numerous things, not only like potency, so someone knows what they're ingesting. It also will test for pesticides, heavy metals, mycotoxins, mold, different things like that. Obviously, products you get on the street, you don't know what's in the product. They haven't been tested. So these products are all tested. They meet a certain level set by the state, and nothing can be moved through the track and trace system I was talking about without passing these tests. So the consumer knows that they are getting a clean and safe product at the end transaction, basically. And then I guess last point on this is, as Andrew was discussing, we feel like legal shops like this will prevent these illegal shops from operating in the future, because the market just will not sustain an illegal shop once there is legal avenues to purchase cannabis. We can go to the next slide. So now maybe to some of the exciting stuff for you guys, like the tax revenue projections that we have. And these are rough. This isn't this is something we have to see that happens, because there's no market available right now. But we're projecting, if in year one, if we can do 5 million in revenues, that would mean a 3% revenue for the town, which would be $150,000. And then you can see the various years if success is continued. We believe success will continue, and we believe we have an opportunity to grow here because Ossining does have this progressive stance in cannabis. I know you guys opted in, which is great, and something we're really excited about. And I also know there's a lot of development and housing going up in that area too. So we feel like that could be a big growth factor for our shop as well. That and with the proximity to the train station too, the commuter traffic, we feel like can really push growth to the shop. So yeah, really exciting opportunity for us. Like I said, these projections are very rough, but it's an exciting thing to look at for sure. So next slide, please. So then I wanted to touch on community engagement and giving back. These are all points that I've seen done in other states at other shops, and this is something I would be really excited about doing in Ossining and with this shop. So things like educational workshops, local sponsorships of community events, sports teams, things like that. Volunteer initiatives, like I'd really like my employees to volunteer to clean up the area one day out of the month or something like that. Really get involved in the community and be a part of this community, because that's the goal. And then host certain charity events, things like that. And then local job opportunities. I'd like to touch on that in a couple slides as well. But we really want to be engaged with the community and be a part of this community. Like I said, I grew up in Croton. I've been coming to Ossining for the last 30 years of my life, which is my entire life. And I love it here, and I want to be a part of this community for sure. So we can go to the next slide. So something we'd like to do is we'd like to pledge a certain percentage of our revenue to be donated to a local charity. This is something I would love to work with the town on. If they felt like there was a certain cause, if you guys felt like there was a certain cause that you'd like to see supported more in the town or something like that, open to suggestions on that. But these are some of the local charities that I've identified in my research and that I've already put in my state application as well to the state, recognizing that I'd like to do this in the community and give back in this way. Most of them are on criminal justice reform right now. And so that's something I'd really like to get behind, but also environmental cleanups, supporting different town departments, police, fire, schools, whatever. All of that would be, really important for us to get involved in, and, I think would help show that we're here and we want to be a part of this town as much as any other local businesses. So next slide, please. So then I talked about hiring local. This is a plan of ours. We would like to hire local residents of Ossining and prioritize those hirings. Career advancement will be really important. We want everything to, offer a path of our employees to be an upper management position and potentially even have partial ownership in the business. Something the state has talked about and something I totally agree with is creating this ethical generational wealth with the cannabis laws being opened up. They first did it with social equity applicants, and that's still a thing with New York State, but it's something I would like to continue into my dispensary as well. And really provide opportunities for people who might have been, negatively impacted by the war on drugs in their life or in their past life. So that is something that, I will definitely pledge to and get behind and would love to, create some jobs in the city of Ossining as well. So next slide, I believe it's my last. So yeah, basically just a little overview of why I think I'd be good for Ossining, and this would be a great project for you guys. Like I said, I have 10 years of experience in the cannabis industry. I've been director of production for a large company. I've been a compliance consultant for the last 3 years. I've been a chief compliance officer. I've been a director of sourcing product. So I have the expertise. I would be hard pressed to find another applicant in the state right now that probably has had the breadth of experience that I've had in this industry over the last 10 years. And I know I'm still relatively young in my life, but so is the industry. So there isn't, experts out there of 40 years of legal experience, right? I mean, I think the first state was in 2013 was Colorado or Washington or something like that. So I really do have a large chunk of experience behind my back. On top of that, like I said, I'm also local. I'm not some large company that's coming in here trying to flash around $10 million and buy up pieces of real estate that are important to the town. I feel like I know what Ossining is about. I grew up here, so to speak, 5 minutes away in Croton, but this place has been a piece of my childhood and growing up as well. So I feel like just that connection of my experience plus my local roots makes me a prime candidate for this location and something I'm truly, truly passionate about and something I've really been excited about. And then on top of that too, I'd just like to end by saying, like, I would like to have an open door policy with the city or with the town, in terms of village, sorry. Croton's a village. I feel like Ossining's a little bigger, so that's why I said that.
Technically, we're a village.
Okay. So with the village, I had, like, in my past, when I was in California and then director of production at that space, we were the first production license that opened up in that town in California. And we really had an open door policy with the city then. And it was fantastic. I thought it was great. We were looked at as an example of, these guys are doing it right. And I used to joke that I should be paid as a tour guide because I would lead tours around for the city like so often. And like, that is something I would like to establish here and really have that open door policy and listen to your guys' suggestions and get to know everyone on a first name basis and just show you guys and be an example for anyone else who wants to come into the cannabis industry in Ossining, and for you guys to say, hey, we want you to do it like that guy over there because he's doing it right, and we can really get behind what he's doing down there. So I feel like that's my case, and I appreciate you guys listening. I think I went a little over time, but thank you so much for listening to me tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So you can stay up there because without the mic, nobody can hear you. And get
Gotcha.
So
Try to
thank you for the very detailed presentation. It's a village. There's actually also a town of Ossining, but that's just when you go in front of the other boards, you want to make sure that the
Understood.
lexicon is correct so that people, even that live here for many years, don't know the difference. So but your lawyer knows it. To my left, do we have comments or questions? Let's start with Mr. Fritchie. Sir?
I have a few questions, but I'm gonna let the other colleagues talk. If anything, I would like to go, maybe not last, but before last, I guess.
Okay, so folks to my right, Deputy Mayor, I see is bringing the mic close.
Not afraid. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you.
So some context. You are the first person representing a cannabis related business coming in front of the board. And so it's going to be a learning process on our end as much as it is on yours. And so we'll be doing that together. There are a variety of views represented on the board, which I think is healthy because there are a variety of views in our community. And so you'll get lots of different kinds of questions. I tend to represent the perspective in the village that is more welcoming to cannabis businesses. There was a conversation in one of the parent chats over the Thanksgiving weekend asking, what's the closest dispensary to Ossining? I've been going to White Plains, I go here, I go there. Is there anything local?
Mhm.
And there was nothing legal that was local. And these were local families, adults looking for this particular product. And so I know for sure there is some need here in the community. I have a handful of questions and I'll try to really focus them. They are in no particular order.
Sure.
First, I want to get a sense of the experience that you described. You described yourself as different from the kind of larger corporate dispensaries. Those also tend to have more standardized experiences. So in Connecticut, like a Curaleaf or a Rise in New Jersey or something like that, where you go in and they have different locations, but you basically get the same kind of experience, which is similar in flavor to what you mentioned, an Apple store, an upscale wine shop, something like that.
Mhm.
Walk me through, or either walk me through what the experience of actually purchasing product as you see it, and then is there any other example of a dispensary that you would say, hey, this is an example of the kind of vision that I have. If you want to see what I want to build here, go check this out.
Gotcha. Okay, so kind of the experience would be, I mean, we will take a lot of, precedents from these other shops, both here and in other states and some of these larger shops, because what they do works, right? So, we might not be as big, we might not have a bunch of locations, but that model kind of works where you go in, it's a very upscale atmosphere. The bud tenders are trained to help someone pick out the product they're looking for, make suggestions. They're very knowledgeable on the product. And it will be a clean kind of Apple store wine shop environment. So kind of what you're imagining there is, kind of what we will be modeling around. But my point in that was just to say that I have more local roots than one of these large scale corporations. And I've worked closely with a lot of these places in other states. So it's not to say like what they're doing is terrible and wrong or anything like that. That's just not what represents me right now. And so in terms of another shop, I mean, any of the real large ones that are doing it right, like Cookies, I really like their layout. I know there's not one in New York yet, but they are opening up soon, I believe. One in New York, maybe. I know upstate, there's a Flintstone Cannabis that one of my clients works with quite closely.
If I can just supplement. In the city, you may want to look at Union Square Travel Agency. It's not as big in terms of square footage, but that's actually good because you're going to see that even with that smaller space, this type of model works well. And just procedurally, for people who have not been to dispensaries, the way the process usually works, and Ryan, tell me if I get any part of this wrong. Generally speaking, there are two ways to order the product. Most people who are not just there for the first time will get into a pattern where they'll do an online order through the website. And usually it's a pre-order because you'll pick a time and then there'll be a window of time to pick it up. And the system through Dutchie, for example, is designed where the pre-order happens on the web. The consumer gets a text or an email, whatever they prefer, saying what time the order is ready. And that's designed to actually mitigate traffic and pedestrian flow, right? So roughly when you come in, it's in that half hour, and they actually get a text saying your order is ready. So for people who are kind of repeat customers, that tends to be their means, and that's a method that is sort of developed in the industry as a means of making sure that traffic flow again is standardized. For people who are just walking in, there are usually a couple of options. Number one is in that immediate vestibule area, which you may have seen in Ascent, for example, you'll have a bunch of iPads on the wall, right? And they'll all have the same website. You'll be able to order it right then and there. And there'll be wandering bud tenders to say, can I help you? And they'll be talking about, okay, to educate. And there is an employee manual that's required by the state. It's going to be obviously implemented here. You're going to have people who really can understand. I'm looking for something that, I'm going to a party or I want to sleep. So you explain the difference between an indica and sativa. And so that everyone's going to be educated in that, kind of like a sommelier, right, with a wine shop. And then once that order is placed, there would be a queuing line, which is how it works at Union Square with the same POS system, where you've placed your order, and then it's like you have your theater ticket, you get on the ticket holders line, right? And that also helps with the flow because you basically have two things going and they're not competing with each other, right? You have your initial order and then you've placed your order, you go to the line. By then, the order's already been processed or being processed. Half of them have already been processed through the online ordering. The other half is in real time, but that's why they have that system where it's that twofold system, again, to keep the flow going. So that the ultimate customer experience is you walk in, you get ID'd, you don't get in without making sure that you've been scanned, and that's all in the state system, right? You place your order, then you get on the line once the order is placed, and then you're going to be exiting through it's going to be a direction where you exit not from the same place that you came in. A little bit like if anybody had been to, there's a dispensary in Northampton, Massachusetts called NITA, which has a system like that. So those are good models and ones that you can probably, I'm pretty sure you can see images of them online. So Union Square Travel Agency and NITA would be good examples.
Thanks, Andrew.
Sure.
Very helpful, thank you. Can you talk about how you, in your experience, have seen businesses like this partner with local police departments?
I do not have a specific example, I guess, except one business I used to work for donated a piece of its proceeds to the police department and you know, attended I believe it was a charity softball game that the police department held each year and participated in and donated to that. So things of that nature. That was Papa and Barkley in Eureka, California. So that's the one real life example I can give you for something like that.
That's helpful. One of the reactions that I had to the particular slide that you had around businesses and nonprofits and so forth that people to partner with is that one of the biggest pieces of value that I think that you can bring as a dispensary is education.
Yep.
Right. So that's one place, whether it's training or you mentioned the schools or so forth. A program like DARE back in the day that was supposed to be drug education has mixed outcomes, but the point was to try to educate. And I think that part of the biggest pushback that folks in the community had around dispensaries in general, when we had the opt-in or not conversation, was around the youth. And so whatever way you can be part of the solution to ensure that young people are not engaging in this particular product, I think would be a benefit. So that's more of a statement than a question, but
sure. No, noted and appreciated for sure.
The last question that I have before turning it over to my colleague to the right is around potency and audience. So your representative mentioned, for example, what is your objective? Are you trying to go to sleep? Are you going to a party, et cetera? One of the things that has happened in the last decade or so, and you know much more about this than I do, but the level of potency generally has gone up to the point where even differences like the kind of flower, indica or sativa, there are it's less different. They're still different, but they're less different, that they're so potent. They're both so potent, right? What do you see as the kind of range of potency that you'd be looking to carry, and who would be your ideal audience in terms of being able to take advantage of the product?
So I don't have a range of potency. I think all products should be represented on the shelves, meaning concentrates with very high potencies to products that might contain very little THC and mostly CBD for therapeutic purposes, such as topical creams, balms, transdermal patches, things where people use it as a medicine legitimately where they're in pain and they might not even get a high of any sort from the product. And I believe that's, kind of what the market dictates. And let me get it straight too, that some people do need to take very high potency products to get relief for whatever condition they're going through. So those products even do have a place on the shelves medicinally, to say medicinally, even though it would be a recreational shop. But I've seen those products used with the higher potencies of 90% THC. I've seen people consume them. I used to consume them myself, so I actually don't anymore, just for personal choice. But I know there's a way to go throughout life and be a productive member of society, and it's not like people hit these products and are just zombies or something for the next 4 hours. It's all about how much you intake, how much of a tolerance you have, and each product has a very clear, like, if it's an edible, it's like take a small piece, take 2 milligrams, take 5 milligrams, wait a half hour, see how you feel. If you don't feel anything, take more. It's the same thing with any concentrate pen. Take 1 puff, see how you feel, take more. So the consumer will constantly be educated on this, both on the packaging as well as through dispensary staff telling someone, hey, this has this potency in it. Are you looking for something like this? So through education, I believe, and just compliant packaging, the consumer will be educated on these products. But to answer your question, I don't really have a cutoff of potency that I would be planning on carrying.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Dana.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, we knew this day would come, and here you are.
Here I am.
I think as in any community, we have community members who are concerned.
Mhm.
And we have a very active group that fights drug abuse among youth. Now, I assume you would sell the gamut of products, flour, vape cartridges,
Yes.
edibles.
Yep.
A lot of this stuff is now packaged to appeal to kids, it's in colorful, cartoony types of. Are you gonna stock that kind of thing?
I can speak to that.
Please.
No, because he's not allowed.
Why not?
Because the OCM regulations
Oh,
are
okay.
extremely specific to the point where they even have a color wheel that if you fall into the wrong shade of the color, you are then in neon and they're going to pull your product for that. The packaging has to be as boring as it can be, with some allowance for creativity, but you can't have cartoon characters. Joe Camel is not going to exist in New York State, period. And at another time, if I'm available to this board to answer questions about this anytime and to bore you to death with, that section of 15 pages of the regulations. My partner and I do a lot of public speaking on this, and we can sort of do an entire seminar on the labeling, packaging, and marketing requirements. They're probably among the most stringent in the country, and ultimately, people who want to do business in New York are going to have to conform to that. So,
Just my next and last question is, as with liquor stores, there are people who can go in and buy and they qualify and they're 21 and they can get in, and then they leave and they redistribute the product to young people. I don't know if there's any way to control that, but is there going to be limits on how much people can buy? Is there any way to control, whether they plan to resell it or give it away?
so there are limits that are set by the regulations. The limits in and of themselves are not going to solve your problem. Because even assuming, first of all, the limits are reasonably generous. It's more than one person can consume in a day, because as a practical matter, like other states, New York is recognizing that cannabis is actually a pretty, not to get on my soapbox, but when you look at the science, the data, which is another thing I'd be happy to talk to this board about, it's a safer alternative for adult use compared to alcohol in terms of public health impacts.
Oh, no, yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, right, exactly. So in that respect, we make sure, all we can do is make sure that it goes through the chain of commerce the way it needs to. Ultimately, if somebody's buying to give to kids, that is the same problem. I'm a Westchester resident, have been for a very long time, but I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, where if you were this tall, you qualified to buy beer, right? And even if that weren't the case, growing up where I grew up, you could find somebody to do that. Now that is a problem no matter where you are. The best thing to do on that is, first of all, it's education, not only toward the kids, but parents, right? And the first thing I said to you guys when I stood up here is like, I'm a parent, and I don't say that because it's convenient to the job. I say it because I really care about this job. And I'm not naive enough to think that my kid who's in college is not going to be able to get her hand on this somehow. But what we can do is talk to parents about having honest conversations with their kids, talking about the differences between this and what happens if they get hold of alcohol, and saying it shouldn't happen. And as a legal matter, we're not tolerating it all from this podium. But as a practical matter, look, this is about education. I can speak to situations where kids in my own town, which is a village, which is a little bit further down the river, Dobbs Ferry. We have a similar problem, and we had a problem in our neighborhood where a kid got a hold of a gummy, illegal shop, thought it was a 5 milligram gummy because the kid had a legal one somewhere else. It was a 50 milligram gummy, right? It's not going to kill the kid, thank God, but that's a big problem. And so community of parents got together and talked about that. At some point, the line does cross where it's beyond our control. What we want to do is be the dispensary that does everything we can, not to the DARE point, because I can tell you about all the flaws in the DARE program, right? That's another conversation, but an honest program. The more civic responsibility is about helping parents help their kids as much as it is about helping the parents, right? So
The other thing is, with fentanyl showing up even in street cartridges that you get, which are very prevalent in schools.
Yeah.
I imagine that, there are very strict controls on what goes into your products, so you could probably be sure they're not gonna kill you.
Well, I'll tell you this as a parent with a kid in college, right? The first parent answer is don't do it, and the second parent answer is if you're going to do it or if it's going to show up, you're not doing it unless it's going to have to be something diverted. Some older brother or something's going to have given it to one of your friends, and that's what's going to happen for exactly that reason. The goal is for people have died not from cannabis, but from cannabis that's laced with something. It is physically impossible. This is a scientific fact. You cannot smoke yourself to death, period. No matter how much pot you smoke. You can drink yourself to death. 6 people a day die from alcohol drinking themselves to death, according to the CDC. That's a 2010 statistic. And that's the latest statistic that's out there that I can find it, right? So same issue. Fortunately, the consequences, if a kid gets hold of something that's lab tested, and there's no way that anything passes through, because lab testing, you have a QR code on the back of this thing. You could see you scan it and on the package, you see when it's tested, you understand what lot, what batch, and if there's a problem with it, gets reported to the state, stopped, right? So the controls are pretty good as they can be.
Okay, thank you. Manny?
Thank you. I guess my first question is going to be to Stuart. Refresh my memory. What are the steps from this board to the planning board to the architectural review board? What is the process for an application like this, please?
Oh, right now in council, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure. You're being asked just to comment upon the proposal by this applicant to obtain a license from the state. So there's an entire planning board process that this has to go through. So we're not, we're at the literally beginning stage, and it has to go through planning. It may have to be, it's not an historic area, so it wouldn't be HPC. I don't know if there's any needs for variances or anything like that. So a lot of the issues in terms of parking, in terms of security, and that's all going to be vetted through the planning board process.
Okay, thank you, Stuart.
Yep.
Oh, but just on the tail of that, the one thing I just want this board to be conscious of is that if the board would like to hear more, in other words, it would allow the process to move into your process, not the state's. The important thing that we're asking for is something that is, if not positive, saying, yeah, we like the project in your response to the OCM, at least neutral. Neutral meaning this does fit within our zoning, right? In terms of the location, it is subject to our process. The process will be employed. We don't have any specific issues or objections, and it's subject to, of course, the municipal review process. So it's not an approval. It's just at this moment state, we don't have an objection. We don't have an objection gets us to the next piece. If a letter comes from the village saying, well, we've got these concerns, the state will probably look at that compared to another applicant and say, well, okay, we're just not going to go with this one because we have someone else another village that says, that's more neutral or says we don't have an objection. So I guess what I'm saying is that you have, candidly, the power to kill this right tonight, unless the message to the state is, yeah, we'll look at this. We'll, we don't have an objection. We'll take a look and see more. So I just want you to be aware of that power.
So fantastic, thank you, because that actually was sort of a little bit get to my next question. So, and this is obviously for maybe Maddie or Stuart. So, and I know we sort of allocated different areas within our municipality, different zones for this type of businesses to go into it. No, we had looked into a map.
Mhm.
Yeah, we have looked into a map. That's what I said, allocated, not right now is that we changed the zoning for this. But was this one of the zones, to refresh my memory, on the location that we were looking for, that when Valerie came in front of us?
So, good evening. Stuart can correct me if I'm wrong. I think the last iteration of maps that we looked at were simply what New York State had put forth, which I think is 250 feet from a house of worship and 500 feet from education, or the reverse, perhaps.
200 and 500.
200 and 500, right? And that was where it was left. So sorry. We actually had a pre-app meeting with this team prior that, we were able to sort of review that, it fell outside of those boundaries. So that's, why we asked Ryan and Mr. Shriver to come in today.
Okay, so again, so for me to even, sort of like you want to go ahead from this board, is like we haven't even allocated a particular zone in our zoning map.
Yeah.
That would permit or allow this type of component itself.
So I just, hold on, I'm not sure. The silence of us not committing has in fact made a commitment, and we discussed this last time, if we don't say where it can go or can't go, which we did not, we discussed and we got a recommendation. In fact, New York State, it defaults to New York State, and this actually does fall within those requirements. There's no church right there that I'm aware of. There's no school right there. What we said was that in the village of Ossining, given our shape and sizing, there are like I think 3 zones where that occurs. But one on each side of Route 9 and where they are. Everything else,
So
you can't do that in.
No, and
Yeah.
I understand that, but we still haven't, we haven't, and I get that overall.
Right.
I remember having a conversation, but so Stuart, correct me if I'm mistaken, because there's not a use on this particular zones right now in our current zoning.
It's
It
retail.
falls under the
It would
retail.
be- it'd be a
That's-
re- it'd be a-
gotcha.
it'd be a-
Okay.
It would be a retail use, so
Okay.
it is it would be a.
Is it permitted use in this
Permitted use in
particular
the
zone?
zone, then it's
Okay.
just a planning question.
Gotcha. All right.
So in fact, they can do it
Yeah,
there.
so that's, okay, so that kind of takes care of that question. So thank you. Ryan, quick question for you. So I know you said you have years of experience, more or less about a decade now within this industry. On those years of experience, this is your first time more or less being an applicant as an owner, I'm assuming, an owner operator for a location like this?
Yes, and in fact, New York State has regulated that you cannot be an owner or have outside interests in another state's license to move forward with this process.
Just to be 100% accurate, on the supply side, so that if he did have an interest in a dispensary in another state, that would not.
Right.
This, but in this case, there are no.
Okay, so because I was looking at some of the stuff, a little bit of your background in the different places that mainly you are in California, as you stated before. It was interesting to hear this morning. I was seeing some news and up a little bit up north. And again, this was not a legal establishment. But one of the biggest problems that they had, regardless of that, is traffic and congestions, regardless of if the product was legal or not. And it became a problem with the police department and enforcement. So just for you guys to keep that in mind, and obviously when you go, if you get to the level of planning and all this stuff, one of the things that will be, you say you only have a few parking spaces in front of this establishment, but obviously there are requirements that you guys need to meet. The other one is, you talked about a little bit more in regards to what the look is and what that means in security and everything else. But one of the things that kind of struck me a little bit is when you were talking about the training on the staff.
Mhm.
You talked about training and you said minimum training. So, if you can clarify what quantifies as a minimum training itself, because for me, in a location like this, you want to go beyond minimum training.
I can, on that, if you don't mind, it's more of a legal answer I can give you.
Okay.
The regulations, which I'm pulling up right now, have an employee training manual requirement that is robust would be an understatement. We've actually prepared a manual based on what's required in the regulations, and it essentially means you have to educate your employees in every facet of the dispensary operation, from basically like, I mean, I don't want to over exaggerate it. It's not a question of where the nuts and bolts are in the walls, but it's kind of almost that granular. It's all the security protocols. It's all of the customer ID and check protocols. It's who's allowed to handle the plant. You can have employees, for example, who are 18 in a cannabis business, but they can't be plant touching, right? So, and that could just be staff that's, directing traffic, for example, or cleaning up or something like that. Or you have to actually have employees that are educated, and this is in the regulations, on the history of cannabis prohibition, which is another topic it wouldn't be boring. I could speak to you on for about an hour for actually a semester, and how and why that gave rise to New York's social equity policy under the MRTA. Like, what we're trying to do is reverse the impacts on disproportionate prohibition. So I can share that list in the regulations. Ryan doesn't have a choice. When he used the word minimum, which I would guess might have been a little accidental.
Yeah, I apologize.
He said town too. He meant village.
And city as well. He said city, but that's okay.
He did say, that's where I jumped in. That was too much. Yeah, it's
Okay. So, and again, I totally understand that. And the reason why, for me, education is a big key for anything that we do. It doesn't matter what it is. I think education is a very essential key. And I think you brought that up on different occasions, which in a way, I'm glad to hear that. My wife is gluten-free, and every time we go to a restaurant where it sells gluten-free stuff, it's very hard to find a waiter or someone that actually understands what that means. So I want to make sure that, when it comes to staffing, if it moves forward, that will be one of the essentials that, it has to, I'm sure you can go more than an hour and then the part of the education. So I'm sort of glad to hear that. The other one was that was interesting to me was that even though this is recreational only use, but you talked about medicine as well.
on that. And this is another situation where I wanted Ryan to speak because he's going to be the owner and the one is your neighbor on a few of these. And it's not a critique. It's just not knowing the law as well as I do, but that's why I'm here. The laws are that the bud tenders themselves won't be able to make medical representations. Okay, so and in fact, when Ryan said that, I made my own mental note that we'll make sure that that's understood. You can talk about general impacts, like this one will make you kind of have a heady feel, or this one will make you feel sleepy, or people fall asleep in front of this, in front of a movie with this one, things like that, which are just basically, impacts on the product, like a bartender saying, hey, if you have a third drink, you're probably going to get sleepy or whatever, right? You can't, in a non-medical dispensary, say specifically, this is designed for this, this is designed for this. The state is very specific about pharmacists who work with the medical side, which will continue to be in operation in terms of what those representations are. And again, in another forum, I'm happy to have a conversation on the differentiations between medical and adult use, how there are differences and actually why it's still an important thing to have a medical program.
Okay. So, and I understand that. Actually, my question was going to be a little bit more because I know some people in our community, they do need medical situations, and there's nothing local. Like one of the trustees, Deputy Mayor Lopez mentioned that, there's a need. So, but your establishment will not provide something like that. Is that correct?
That's correct. In terms of, well, first, a point of data, just so your residents know, there are medical facilities in White Plains and in Yonkers. So Yeah, not immediate,
no,
but
yeah.
you know, at least Westchester's has some of them online. The medical dispensaries are going to be permitted to expand into recreational use. But the fact that there's no medical dispensary right now in the immediate area tells me that it likely won't be the case that a medical dispensary will be coming to the immediate area, because the expectation is that the existing locations are going to open up an adult use side. There's a very, very hefty price. It's actually millions of dollars that the registered organizations, the medical providers have to pay to get into the market, and they're being allowed into the market just kind of on the heels of these first adult use applicants. So I guess what I'm saying, trustee, is that it's unpredictable when all of this will be allowed to open from the OCM. I can't make any predictions about that. But the way that it's been staggered, and the $1 million price tag, the 7-figure price tag that goes with opening medical, tells me that there's, first of all, there'll be room for both, because the percentage of people who actually have medical cards in New York is shockingly low, at least, and it had been that case up until the MRTA was passed. Before that, it was less than 10%. Of people who actually consume cannabis, and it hasn't grown that much. So most of your community who actually wants this probably are not medical card carriers to begin with. For those who are, my prediction, educated prediction, is that at some point in the next couple of years, they'll probably have access closer to an RO that has opened something medical around here. There's a need for it. But the people who have the need otherwise, who are on the chat over the weekend, those are the ones that we can really fill the need for, and that we think is good, you know, not only to serve the public for a need that, you know, the village has said that it wants, but it also does have the revenue component.
Sure, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, thank you for coming in. Super educational, because you are really, well, it's all in its infancy stage. I wasn't around when prohibition stopped and liquor came into being. Not that old, but you know, from what I understand, it takes 10 to 20 years for new products to really take hold, and this is all new. So obviously there are going to be highs and lows in the way people approach it, comparison to alcohol, etc., you know, all of that stuff. So I'm actually interested more in you. And are you the sole owner of this business?
Yes, I am.
So my understanding is the financing is very high. So I'm very interested in who we're really dealing with, because we have had experiences in other businesses where the owners and the financial people behind the business are not the people we're talking to. And it's generally comes out when it starts being a negative experience for the community.
Sure.
We find out, you know, different people, whatever. So you're 100% sole owner of this business.
I am the sole owner of this business, and to be transparent, I may take on financing, but I will not be giving up more than a 20% share in the business. So I will be the majority shareholder and owner of the business for its entirety, basically.
I'd also just like to add that the state has a definition of what they call a true party of interest in the regulations. It's one of the most stringent spines of the regulations deal with the issue of who is what's considered to be a true party of interest, because the state has a very wary eye about the very concern that you just raised. For example, keeping out multi-state operators who may be on the supply side trying to get in and own a dispensary here, which would violate OCM policy, and also kind of maybe grind the nerves of people who want to help local people establish businesses. So in that respect, not only can I tell you there's no Trojan horse here, but if there were, we would have a legal obligation to disclose those people to the state. Anybody who holds more than a 10% interest in any cannabis business has to be disclosed as a true party of interest to the state. And that's direct or indirect interest, beyond which, even without disclosing it, even if we have a partner who's a 9% holder, the fact that I don't have to disclose that to the state does not mean that I can bring in somebody who violates that rule.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you. And how many employees do you think it takes? What's the minimum number of employees, including, I guess you have a security guard, etc.?
So yeah, rough estimate for you, because obviously it'll become more apparent as things move along, but very rough estimate right now. I mean, with a space of that size, including security, you know, anywhere probably from like 7 to 10, maybe 12 even, something like that.
Okay, that sounds like a lot to me, but okay. I mean, that place is that used to be a glass place, I guess, with vans coming in at all hours of the morning, in and out. It's a commercial place. There's a bar restaurant across the street. I think it's been vacant actually for a while. You're not buying the property, you're leasing it, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. I took a drive down there just to see what it looks like. On one side, you've got commuter, lots of noise from the train. I think people live here, just get used to that noise. I used to live right by a train, so. But and on the other side, highly residential. And so you sort of got both of them, on one on either side. So that'll be interesting. What are the normal hours for this? And I'm sure it's regulated, but what are the normal?
So I believe the regulations say that we can't be limited to less than 70 hours per week. Initial thoughts on it were something like a 10 to 10 Monday or 7 days a week, something like that. But also open to working with you guys, like I said, if there was.
Is that something the planning board also manages, is the hours of operation, or do we have that in the code?
Well, no, what the applicant said and what are in the regs are the state has a minimum number of hours that the facility must be open. So you can't.
I got the minimum, I'm looking at the maximum. The minimum, I
Well, if
understood.
you wanted to set certain hours where there are, we do that with other locations as well. Certain
Okay.
things could be done.
That'd be planning, right? That's not
that would be-
us.
That would be a condition from the planning.
Right, okay, great. The parking, I think, is an issue, and all the people that tell you how there's gonna be parking any minute now. I wouldn't count on all of it, what, the extra, no, not you. I don't think he said you. I think he said other proprietors that said that. On our ramp, apparently there will be parking that I wasn't aware of till about an hour ago when we started this. So that's it for my questions. I appreciate you all coming in. I think it's very educational. We let these things go beyond our required 10 minutes because it's recorded. There will be people that will be asking when they find out that you're here. And then we say, please look at the recording. So it is part of education right from the get-go. Very happy about that. So, and really the only last question, I'm not interviewing for a job. You don't even have to answer it. On your goal, because you've been in 10 years, so you've basically been through the entire time frame of this industry in some way. What's your 5-year goal? Like, if I were to interview you for a job and I said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What is that?
In 5 years, I would hope to be a member of this community or Croton where I grew up with a house and have this space thriving, and maybe you're allowed up to 3 licenses. Maybe in 5 years I would have another one in a different community or something, but this is really my first foray into New York. Like I said, it's a passion. I've always wanted to bring cannabis back home. I've been 10 years on the West Coast pretty much and other states. So really making roots in this community and setting up I heard you guys talk about a 10-year business anniversary at the beginning of this meeting. Hopefully I'll be having a 5-year business anniversary if that's something you guys do with these meetings in 5 years from now.
So I said it was the last, but it occurred to me that there is one more, as I look through my notes over here. Can you, when you go through the whole and I know it's a long process and an expensive one, I get that. And when you get to the finish line, can you turn around, take all of that and sell it to somebody else? Or is there a minimum, sorry, I have something wrong. Is there a minimum requirement that you be the proprietor for X number of years? How does that work in New York?
I'm going to refer to Andrew on
Yeah.
this because he probably knows
That's fine.
better than I do. I know I do have a succession plan written into my application to the state for the business. And like I talked about, creating equitable share with employees and communities disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs is something I'm striving to do, but I'll let Andrew speak to the specific regulations.
What's the code? It's not.
So if there is a transfer of majority ownership, the state has to give a blessing to it. The OCM has to give a blessing to it. And it comes with all the disclosure requirements related to true parties of interest that I mentioned. The one thing that they ask for in the application process, part 1, which we've submitted, that has any content to it, in addition to just sort of the statistics, is what is your business continuity plan? Because the state has the same concern about, we want to make sure you're not doing this to flip. You want to make sure you're in here.
Thank you. That's really, I should have just said it outright.
I will say, unlike, there's no restriction necessarily. There's no legal restriction that says he couldn't get it, up and running and then sell it. However, two things, it would be subject to state approval, well, first of all, it would be also very inconsistent with, the fact that he's from here, that he's from 10 minutes away, and that's what Ryan's looking to do. Whether or not at the time, if somebody, not just here, but in any situation, if somebody wanted to make that majority ownership transfer and the state has to give blessing to it, the only thing the state has not said yet is whether the state can then turn back to the community and say, hey, community, what about these guys, right? I don't know the answer to that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. All righty. So what we're here for an hour, which is a long time, I understand, but again, it's new. You wanted to say something.
If the board doesn't have any more questions, I just wanted to interject very quickly what our next step would be. So this application, the most recent iteration came in on November 15th. So automatically the community gets 30 days to make comment to the Office of Cannabis Management. We actually got a 30-day extension on that just because of the holiday season and the board's frequency in meeting. So by January 14th, they need to have received your comments. So certainly, keep our office apprised of what you'd like to do, and we will be the sort of conduit for that information back to the state.
Okay, thank you. So the only question I actually have tonight, since we've all heard everything, is whether the board wants to actually vote on it. It has to be done publicly, right, Stuart? This is not like is this exec or is this?
It's not an exec, it's really just if the board wants to send a letter to the OCM. It's really to the board. It's not a resolution. I mean,
Right,
just-
and it's a letter that
discussion among-
says we're either neutral per the comment, we're positive, or we're negative about it, correct?
No objection. Yeah.
Right.
No objection or yes objection, right? I'm sure it's a form. Folks, do you want to have that tonight, or you want to sit and think about it? We have till January 14th.
And that's what I was gonna ask, because this is, as Maddie stated, that this is in a public meeting. If there's members in the community that have concerns, I'm assuming they will let us know, if anything. So for me to make a decision right now, it'd be unfair
Okay,
to the community. So I would like to hold off until we hear
Okay.
something back, at least.
well, let's put a date though,
Yeah,
because
we can do that.
we could
But
publish.
Daniel, you said January 14th.
That's us.
That's for
That's
us.
for us.
That's the deadline.
That's the deadline.
by which the state must have
Correct.
Well, we can act before that.
Of course.
So-
Well, we're gonna have
So,
to act
Stuart,
before
can we
that.
put this on as continuing business in the future? Like, then 2 weeks, give them 2 weeks to,
You could put it on in the December this 13th, December 13th work session, you could do it.
is that enough? Does everybody feel that's enough time for public to?
Yeah, it's not a legislation, so it's hard to say like, what exactly are we gonna do? Are we writing a note to the public? Are we putting like, how does the public even learn about it? Except if there are 5 people, I think, listening in on this right now.
The mayor's
So,
message.
Mayor's.
I mean,
Yeah.
oh, the mayor message, okay. I could ask for that.
Blasts.
No, that's
We can do a
fine.
blast.
Those
something
blasts are
yeah.
for events, they're not for decisioning.
However,
But the mayor message we could do, so I'm just curious, because it's not, we're legislators and this is not legislation. So you think a couple of weeks? Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Next work session, we'll just.
Yeah. Okay,
go
so
right
to this side of the room, any other suggestions?
I'm good with the 2 weeks. I would be curious to do an initial straw poll to see where folks' heads are at, if they're comfortable.
Oh, these folks, 5 of
If
us.
where we currently are, just to kind of get a sense of that. My sense is that whenever you put call out to the community with any kind of issue, particularly one that is more controversial, you get folks that are more animated on either side of the issue. So you'll get proponents and opponents of cannabis that will be flooding VOT@villageboston.org. To what extent does that represent the community sentiment? It's kind of hard to tell. So my suggestion would be, given the fact that it is up to us, ultimately, it would be maybe helpful for folks to see where we currently stand. And then in a couple of weeks, once we see what comments come in, take that into consideration. You keep your vote, you change your vote, or whatever. Because people will have many more opportunities to voice their opinion in the planning process and in these other steps of the process. This isn't the last time the community will be able to voice their concerns about this particular bit.
Right, because this, I think, the way I understood the application, it's not for public input. It's whether the board rejects this and therefore kills it. Anything less than that,
No, I want to be clear. What it is specifically, you have 30 days to express an opinion for or against the granting of a license, which shall mean for this section, issuance of a registration, license or permit for a new establishment, transfer, renewal, or alteration of an existing registration license or permitted premises, and any such opinion then becomes part of the record. Your role here is frankly limited. In other words, we're not talking about planning. We're not talking about the size of a building. It's with regard to the person who is here tonight and making an application, is the sense of the board, as it says municipality here, to either for or against granting the license to this person. That's all it is right now, to grant the license to this applicant. That's what the board is being asked to give an opinion on.
okay, I actually thought that's what I said
Well, no, you
because
said would it kill it? Would it comes?
well, that was his
part of the
words.
record.
If
Well-
we reject it, then it could kill the project. That was this attorney's words.
As a practical matter, Mayor, I think that's accurate.
Okay, I was just repeating what he said.
I'm just-
Like,
And I
yeah.
read from what the code said.
I mean, why would we reject it in a way?
Well, I don't
Because
know.
we opted in, so we
Yeah,
open
first-
to the idea. It would have to be something like,
Okay.
oh, well.
Okay, first of all, we're gonna stop the conversation. Thank you, because we're now way over time. There are other people here for other things, so I think we're done with this part of it. Thank you. You can grab a seat. Now let's have the board do it. So, to answer your question, I never know why people vote the way they do. We vote. So what's up at the table right now is a couple of weeks. I put something in the mayor message, we react. What I got over here is that's not how we do these kind, not this specific, but we don't, this is not the time for community engagement. That will come as it goes through the process. It is the board is being asked by the state of New York to either say there's something about it we don't like, whatever that may be, and I'm sure there's a form and we'll have to explain it, or we're neutral on it, we're fine. They can go forward to the next piece. That's all I'm hearing here, and it's no different than many other things that we do. We, as a board, do not make decisions about anything. If they need easements, that'll come later, if they need to do the X, Y, and Z. We're just being asked by the state, not by them, by the state of New York. There's a clock running that says, are you against it? Are you neutral? Are you for it? I'm using colloquial terms, not the code. We could do it tonight. We could think about it and write the note and let staff know so they could fill out the forms on our behalf. Or we can have community engagement, but it doesn't call for community engagement. The state isn't asking for that. That comes later. So I think that's the clarity that we're getting here from this way. I don't mind doing a straw poll. I have my opinion.
So can I,
I'm glad that somebody was here, but I could go either way. If you want to wait 2 weeks, we'll wait 2 weeks.
real quick, because
Yeah.
my colleagues asked all the questions that I had written down here.
Great.
We jumped on, we opted in for a reason.
Mhm.
Right, and that was the time for the public.
Yeah.
Right? I'm in favor of moving this forward. I'm just gonna put it on the table right now.
Okay, because I thought 2 seconds ago you said you want to do the 2 week thing, but now
I
you're
got more
still-
clarity is
Oh,
when Stuart.
I
gets
get
to
it. Thanks, Bob. Understood. Okay. So we got that.
I'm in favor of moving.
And you're in favor of moving forward.
So,
And
so,
where are you?
so I'm gonna answer this question maybe with another, maybe not the answer that you guys want to hear. And not, I mean, you guys. So the 5 of us, we sit here because we are elected officials. And because we are elected officials, we are elected by the people to make decisions on behalf of the people, on behalf of our community. It's not just by making our own decisions. Sometimes for me, and all the years that I have been sitting in this chair, I always try to listen to my community, even though we made a decision, which is 100% correct. I want to make sure that the community feels that they're being heard, that it feels that they have a voice. And regardless, even if we say, you know what, we're going to move forward, but there's some members in the community that may not feel the same. But we already opted into that decision. So for me, it's an avenue, just like it was stated before, of education. So I want to hear from the public. So right now, as an elected official that I was elected by the people to represent them, I would like to wait the 2 weeks to make my decision.
Okay. Um, so for me, I don't know if I would do neutral or support, because I don't think it's all that relevant actually in this conversation. We spent over a year having conversations, with public meetings about cannabis, about all of this stuff. The next step was very clear that when a company, a proprietor, whatever, an LLP, whatever comes forward, they'll come, they will then move through the process as long as they're the right people. We have a choice of limiting things or not limiting things. So for me, the conversations with the community actually were over a year. So I'm going to go and not vote, because this is like, we're not voting, this isn't legislation. And let the planning and everybody else do. Planning is also a public meeting, and they're supposed to announce all this. And the people that are involved in it should be writing into us at all times for their opinions about it. So I'm gonna move it forward. How we move it, I haven't seen any of the paperwork, so I have no idea what we're supposed to fill in or whatever. So, and it's not that,
Yeah,
I'm not
there's
saying.
there's no paperwork. It's just we can send comments. So if the board had a specific comment that they want
Oh.
to make, or they can just say neutral or generally supportive or concerned.
That's it?
No
Those are
form.
your
Right.
short form. Okay. Did you have a question or?
Just guidance on that.
Okay, not your honor, but go ahead.
Can you come to the microphone, please?
I mean, honorable, yes, but not your honor. I got enough problems.
My day job is court, my night job is here, sorry. Mayor, just from experience that we've had with another community, what they did was a simple one-page letter, where they basically said, you know, we understand this project's been requested, it's at this, it's consistent with our zoning, right? Because they do want to make sure it's not
Right.
not allowed under zoning. And what they said is, you know, we have no objection to the project. It'll move forward to the planning board for review and approval. And that's it. Not that it's.
Is this
that's
another
what
community in Westchester?
It is. Yeah,
And why aren't you? I thought this is the only one you're doing. So,
it is. This is for us.
oh, we means your firm.
Yes.
Not him.
Oh,
Got it.
yeah.
Got it. That's okay.
That's another court habit. We
That's
speak on
fine.
behalf of the
Yeah.
firm.
It's fine. Okay, thank you. I don't mean to rush you, but I am rushing
Of
you.
course,
We've got a whole group of people here.
No, we've taken two more of your.
And this is much longer than I had expected, although I think super helpful, because we don't want to have multiple meetings and multiple anything. We covered a lot of ground. So there is a majority vote to go in, if there is such a thing as a vote on this, to basically not be in the way or be a hurdle to move this to where we expected this to move forward. And I think you guys, you went and looked at different properties. From what I understand, you didn't bring that up throughout our village. And the property is already commercial. I think there's a bar restaurant, always has been for years right across the street. So it fits in, commuters, everything you said lines up. So we'll take it to the next step because there is a majority agreement to move it forward. I mean, the verbiage and all that, I guess you guys could put a draft based on this conversation and we'll look at it. And if we disagree, if it's too strong or too weak, we'll comment on it.
So, just to
Sure.
clarification again, I'm not against the project.
No,
I was just open to the community feedback.
Of course.
So, you know, as you heard, the majority rules. So good luck on the next steps for you guys.
For what it's worth, I respect your position and I understand. And by the way, I do want to just last word, thank you and your staff. This has been a very accommodating village to work with.
Well, I appreciate the presentation and about employing local. We're going to hold you to that because you haven't seen us when we get angry. You don't want to see, we're not very, you're getting a very pleasant group. But I expect internships, I expect local hires, I expect clean, and I expect that you would be involved in the community. Because that is actually one of the key legs of this legislation was to employ minorities, to put money back into the communities and all that other stuff. And people promise us lots of stuff and then don't do it. So we're going to hold you to that because in this case, we actually, there will be lots of eyes on you guys, but I think you know that already. Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have our village historian. Joyce Cole, who's here to talk to us
Hello,
tonight
Joyce.
about the Hometown Heroes Banner Project. Thank you and welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening,
We-
historian.
We are precariously close to my bedtime, so I will be fast.
Thank you. Oh, that's what the
Yes.
banner is. You brought show and tell.
Yes, I bought show and tell. I like shopping. So, I am really passionate about this. I talked to
Yeah, let me
trustee
have
White
this
and
camera
Casada about this. Showing and displaying our appreciation to our servicemen and women for the sacrifices they have made for our country. And I think this is a lovely way to do it. We would be one of many communities in Westchester County that already are taking part in this project. Do you want me to lift it up?
No, I want to tell these gentlemen that I can hear everything you're saying. So I was
Okay.
going to politely walk over and say, if we need to have a conversation to go outside, it's the sound in here and it picks up on the mics and I can hear it. Actually, from all of you guys. So I didn't do it so politely, sorry. I was trying to sort
okay.
of sneak behind you and do it more quietly.
You were coming in hot. That's why I stopped.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. I should have gone on the other side.
So the vendor I chose, I consulted with Mount Pleasant, who does the program. The facilitator there is wonderful, and she has walked me through the best practices in Mount Pleasant. So first thing is that it costs nothing to the village to purchase this. This is all based on the sponsor. A sponsor would be an individual, a family, or a company that wants to buy and showcase that they're proud veteran in their family or such. But there is a component that we would need the village's help. We would need DPW because we need someone to, we need DPW. Did you like that? Okay, so we need someone to put them up. I'm afraid of heights, so I'm not doing it. But inside the cost of this is built-in money to pay for the service of putting it up and taking it down.
Yeah, because that's actually, all kidding aside,
Mhm.
and other programs ain't cheap.
Yeah.
And our guys, men and women are, it's not really their time has value. And so,
Absolutely.
so I think it was very smart that it's included.
Mhm.
Is it a veteran from Ossining or any veteran in the US?
So we designed the program that, the way we want to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so we can say that the person sponsoring has to live in Ossining, and it can be anyone in their family that they want to showcase and see up and down the street. I would love for it to be on Highland Avenue, but if we couldn't, Croton Avenue. I think this would be a great pilot. We only have to commit to it 1 year. I would think that it would be a point in time. We would do it a week before Memorial Day, take it down a week after Veterans Day. So because the snowflakes go up. I don't know if they stay up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they don't stay up, but they stay up for the time. So it's a limited amount of time.
yes,
Anybody can sponsor it. It has
Yes.
to be an American veteran.
yes.
We haven't decided where we're gonna put it up yet. But we
No,
have.
that was just my recommendation.
Right.
Yeah.
But so, and it's a 1 year thing. So I have a veteran in my family, John Doe.
Mhm.
I want them recognized.
Yes.
It goes up and then it comes down. And if I want my friend John Doe to be honored a year later, I have to pay again for the same thing.
So the initial cost, that's determined also by what size we're going with. So this in particular, it'd be $250. Rehanging it is $50 if we followed the plan that Mount Pleasant did.
Mhm.
$50 is just to have it taken down, stored, and the next year they will pay another $50, and every year it's $50.
Okay,
Mhm.
and if they don't want to, they just keep
They
it.
take it home. 'Cause
Right, they have it
purchased
for their home and they can,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So if it just happens to get weathered over the year or the 6 months,
Mhm.
is there a replacement cost?
So the family would, but they say that this lasts pretty well. I talked to Mount Pleasant. They've been doing it for quite a number of years, and the banners still look wonderful.
Okay.
And I checked with the company. This particular company has worked with Peekskill, Cortland Manor, Hastings, Lewisboro, Mount Pleasant, Newcastle, Somers, and Yorktown.
Could you hold it up so we can see it, or do you want me to help you with that? I'm usually like, oh, that's what I recognize is
Yeah.
that side, so that somebody has to give you a picture.
So they give a
United States-
picture, the
okay.
company, so I need to talk in here. The
Yeah.
company will make a website for the village and
Okay.
they do everything. They work with the family, and another great service that they provide is if you have a very worn, old photo, they will restore it for free.
Okay. And did you speak with our own veterans, the Austining veterans?
I
group?
talked to Mike O'Connor. The only objection he had was he thought that he worked with banners before and he said it didn't look good, but
Oh.
this is a different vendor. And then he was concerned about people not knowing the veterans and their family, but I have a remedy for that. I do programs at the library. I help people find their veterans and their family. I've reclaimed records. I've helped them get tombstones for that they were entitled to. So I will do the work.
Well, that's lovely. And how many, you said, I'm sorry, you said Mount Kisco does this?
Mount Pleasant.
Mount Pleasant, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Which feels the same to me. How many do they have going up?
They're in the hundreds now.
Yeah,
They're in the hundreds.
That when they started, she said it was 50, a little less than
They're in
50.
the hundreds.
Yes.
So we have to find a lot of poles in a lot of streets.
Well, she said
Okay.
initially when they first started, people like to do things they've seen people do. So you might not get a ton. People have asked me about it. But you pick them at the amount of polls and it's first come, first serve.
And who manages that?
We can talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we could talk
All
about
right,
it
so we
manage the
can,
program.
I'm sure they have a map that you fill and put in, oh, you're laughing. Do you have something?
Thank you.
Look at that. See, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna just say right now, this is like when you're in sales, you say, thank you, have a nice evening. I can't believe, like, look
Yes.
at this.
So I have a question. So
Okay,
if I live in the village, I could commission a banner for my father, for example,
Yes.
even though
Your
he was
father's
born
a-
in Buffalo.
Yes, because you live here.
Oh, okay.
So the initial $250 cost, that includes the initial installation
Mhm.
fee.
Correct.
Okay.
And the brackets.
it's the brackets have actually caused a lot of problems, so that's, it's a nice program.
Yeah.
Is this a nonprofit or a for-profit organization, all of this being done by?
The company
Yeah.
is a for-profit, but it's all veterans.
Okay, interesting. You gonna do one for your dad, Dana?
Sure.
Why not? That's what I figured. Questions, comments, questions? I guess we'll start on this side this time. We'll work our way down.
2 thumbs up.
I'm okay with
We're
it. Sounds
done?
good.
Thank you.
Joyce,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I drive to Columbus Avenue every day, so I see those signs
Yeah.
every day. So that's awesome.
Brings the community together. It
does.
feels warm.
Yes,
It's
Mhm.
lovely.
definitely.
I would just ask you, there were a
Mhm.
number of people
Mhm.
talking about this program for the past 5 years.
Okay.
I would just ask you to go back and say, we're doing this and,
Mhm.
this is the village only, is the town also being involved in this?
I thought that some Aaron Spring did go to the town.
Are they using a different company?
I'm not sure.
No, Aaron wants to use this one after
Okay.
conversations with.
It's
Coordinate.
Yes.
So it'd be nice to coordinate, because again, or maybe this will be the first time people will know where the town is and the villages just based on that.
Yeah.
But you know what? It is what it is. Thank you very much. Are there any questions you have for us?
No, I like the yes. That was great.
When can
Thank
you start?
Okay.
So I would start immediately with getting the company to start the website because I want people to have time. It's $250. That's not easy for everybody.
215 or 250?
250.
Okay.
So I want them to be able to talk with their family to save, and if they don't know the veterans in their family, to get the help to
People
get
can
the
donate
information.
as well. If you
They
don't have a
can- yeah, they
veteran,
could do
can
whatever they
donate
want.
For the family as well, sure. Because I know,
Yeah.
I know some people in Mount Pleasant, that's what they do.
Yeah.
They have.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'll be donating for anybody that
That's-
is interested in that.
That's great.
yes.
Thank you.
That's
100%.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
want me to
You're
leave
getting
this
that
with you?
thumbs up. You're gonna have to. In fact, I
Okay.
want to put it in the mayor's office.
No
frankly.
problem.
Put it
Thank
on the
you so
wall. I need
much,
some.
Joyce.
Thank
decor.
you. Good night.
Steve's office.
Huh? He was, yes. Yeah. They use him
Thomas
as,
Bradford's a real veteran.
They use
Oh,
him
that's
as
so
a
nice.
standard, yeah.
Thank
That's
you
very
so
nice.
much.
you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Right, good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you for coming down. Sorry about the technical stuff.
We fixed that problem, Joyce. We just wanted to see you here.
Yes. Next, sorry. I'm
Next,
looking in the
we
wrong
have
direction.
our treasurer Dale Brennan here tonight to go over changes between the tentative budget submitted by the manager and the changes that were recommended by the Board of Trustees during our budget meetings. Dale, we have sent you a memo, but we'll go through that now, and then the budget is scheduled to be adopted on Wednesday, December 6th.
Next
So-
Wednesday. Okay.
Yes. So
Dale?
All right.
You okay?
Yes, I had to get the button. Good evening, Mayor and Board. So in the memo I sent, last week, it highlights, the, adjustment, to the tax rate. From the tentative tax rate, we had, a slight adjustment because our assessment, I always build in an assessment reduction when we're doing the tentative budget. So that at the point that we go to do the adopted budget, we're on the positive side of things versus the tax rate increase. So I did that, achieve that goal this year. So less.
Thank you.
The tax rate actually is going to be $8.9014, slight adjustment from my memo because I did ask the assessor's office to freeze the assessment roll today. So that once we adopt the budget, we can start building our tax bills and get them out as prescribed by law in people's hands before January 1st. So they have graciously done that, and I am working with Edmonds to get them ready for that process to be going forward. So that brought our taxable assessments to 9.60% for the adopted budget. We did during our many hours of budget meetings. Thank you very much. We had a lot of conversation along with
It's negative 9.6.
with departments.
It's a negative, right?
It-
Okay, keep going.
The tax rate actually reduced from 2023 to 2024. Yes, that's correct. It
That's what
went,
how much did it go down?
the 2023 tax rate was 9.5040. And it's going down to 8.9014.
Okay.
It's a reduction of 6.34%. And 60 cents per
Okay.
thousand. So through our many hours of discussions with the board and the departments, there were changes, increases and decreases, along with revenue changes that were noted along the way, as well as during this process, the PBA contract changes came through. So in order to reappropriate the allocations needed within the 2024 budget, those are also included in the detailed schedule I provided in the memo. The net result is there's an increase of $32,523 from the tentative budget to the adopted budget. It does not change our tax levy. Our tax levy remained the same.
Which is what, remind me? Minus what?
The tax levy amount, the tax rate is a reduction of 6.34%. The tax levy amount is 25,253,953. And that was the same as the tentative budget. So the additional amount of $32,523 is actually being absorbed in increases to departmental revenues. And we were also able to reduce the use of fund balance slightly.
Say slightly, how much was that?
The fund balance amount we were using for one-time items in the 2024 budget was 194,747, and it's now 166,747. So a $28,000 reduction of use of fund balance.
No, I just wanted to know.
In the next paragraph of discussion, I did propose for the capital project schedule, specific amounts now for the DRI project to be built from fund balance versus debt. So that is included in the capital plan.
So you're taking more out of our fund and instead of debt?
Yes.
Because, you know, I feel that our
Reserves are too high, actually.
And this is basically, as we were moving through the last couple of years, this was the plan to use fund balance for these large scale.
But we have a lot of
projects.
large scale now.
Yes. And-
24 is probably going to be the biggest year this village has seen.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree. So we are doing a mix of fund balance use to offset to then not take out debt service. So for the smaller projects, the Market Square project, I'm proposing using all of our allocation, to the grant funding from fund balance.
Okay.
The only one I'm proposing doing a mix of debt service and fund balance is for the parking structure. So that will be an amount of 3 million of general fund balance for that project. And then debt service of 7 million, along with the grant funding of 3,243,000. But
Okay.
this will bring our our general fund balance amount down to about 26% of expenditures, which is a definite healthy, but not too healthy amount.
Oh,
you know,
okay. Direction we're going in, I think it's still too high, but all right.
There,
We have too
there,
much in reserves. Interest rates go up. It's when you use them. Interest rates go down. It's when you don't, right? We have a, what, a AA bond rating?
we're actually
Okay.
AA2.
AA2. And the county just announced they're a AAA. I'm just gonna say, not that I'm competitive, but that also helps. So this is what we're supposed to be doing. And the accountants have told us, so
Yes.
I think you're moving in the right direction, because I know you're very, very conservative, which has helped us during the deep recessions where other municipalities almost like went under. Still,
Yes.
I think this is the right trend. We have huge projects going on.
Yes, absolutely. And there's different schools of thought on fund balance. If you speak with Moody's, our credit agency, they want us to have as much fund balance to cover our outstanding debt. And that way they know, we're secure. The state comptroller has different rules and not necessarily rules, but
Suggestions.
Suggestions.
Okay.
And it's also unique to your municipality, as well as, environmental or, aged equipment, aged infrastructure.
Yep.
It's very dependent, on different things.
What else,
So-
what are the other headlines that you want to tell us about?
So there is an estimated fund balance, schedule within that memo, which actually goes in the adopted budget as well. So when we put that all together, that schedule will be in there. And it does already, allocate out, the general fund and water fund balance that's in the capital plan, and already established. And the fee schedule changes that we had discussed with the board will also be in the new prescribed fee schedule, but as you know, we do continuously update that during the year. So that is always a work in progress, as is the capital plan, because we will have to come back to the board with the actual capital budget resolutions in order to move the funds over and establish the capital projects. So I would like to do that probably on the December 20th meeting to bring to resolution
Which?
the capital budget items
Okay.
to be funded. And that, I think, covers most of it.
Okay. Questions? Questions, comments?
No, just thank you, Gail, as always. Thank you so much for all that stuff, and I guess we're looking forward for the next capital projects.
Yeah, for the December, that's a tough one. It's right before Christmas.
I could do it next.
I don't know. Okay, we'll see.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. We're not being asked to do anything right now, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Next on our agenda, our Director of Public Works and Village Engineer, Paul Fraioli, is here to discuss the traffic calming improvements that have been made in the village. And we also have Lieutenant Drew Mayarno and our foreman Mike Duffy here as well. This is the team that has been working very hard to make Ossining more driver friendly, safer, and more walkable.
Thanks for the introduction. I'll append it and say that you're correct. No department is an island in efforts like this. So that's why we're all here, because we're all gonna have a part of it. We've talked to you tonight, and I'm sure you're gonna have questions which are gonna cover all of our departments. So thank you for the introduction. So in speaking with the manager, we discussed bringing you up to speed on where we are with some of our present road projects right now. There's three main ones that I think you all know about, but I want to discuss some other ones that I don't have any pictures for, Jamie, but you could maybe start by just pulling up the first of the three, and then just at least there's a piece to look at. But while she's bringing those up, I will tell you that James Street, which is a project I've discussed with the board previously, was a CDBG project, a 50-50 match of about $480,000, actually over $500,000 we spent there. It was a complete streetscape redo, and we were actually sneaking in the paving this year too, which we were not certain about, but we paved about half of it today, and we're going to finish up by the end of the week. The lieutenant's going to expand a little bit more on how the police assisted with that effort, because it's always tough when you go down into a very populated area on a pretty significant travel corridor to do projects like that. But that's going along very well, and it looks like we're going to knock it out before the end of the year, which is a nice thing, including the frosting on top, which was 10 new trees that we planted in the right of way downtown. So that was a nice little detail that the county put into that project. We also are doing some increased signage, which Mike is going to talk a little bit about later as well, with regard to a lot of our existing crosswalks in the village, and bring a lot of our signage up to snuff with regard to the manual of uniform traffic control devices, which I've used that acronym in front of you before, the MUTCD. He's become intimate with that manual, whether he wanted to or not. He and Pasqualino Velardo have done a yeoman's work with replacing a lot of dated and worn signs, and also signing the new crosswalks that I'm going to talk about last. There's three of them. This first one we're looking at here now was on the heels of removing some parking that was causing some restrictions in the right outside Village Hall over here on Croton Avenue, and where it intersects Elizabeth Street. You can see another view of that crosswalk, where if you keep that slide up there now, Jamie, for a second, everybody knows, because you spent so much time in Village Hall here, that lots of people cross the road there to access Village Hall and some of the stores on this side, the library, etc. So adding that crosswalk, eliminating those antiquated steps on the right side of the photo there, and making an ADA accessibility contiguous for the crossing and the existing crosswalk there was a nice detail. Okay, we go to the next email. What she's bringing up now is just a little project that we did in concert with the Parks Department. We know that our parks are used often, and we want to facilitate the foot traffic to those parks. And someone, actually was a resident, brought to our attention. So we always do appreciate residential calls that request things for us to think about. And we thought about this one, which was a connection to the existing sidewalk on the western side of Narragansett. Now it allows people to safely walk on that sidewalk and safely cross the street into Vets Park. We enhanced the crosswalk a little bit with a sidewalk that runs down into the park, so you can actually walk all the way to the field without having to walk in the road, without going through a crosswalk, and also not have to walk into the parking lot, which quite frankly is a pretty busy place, particularly on the weekends. Very highly used park, so nice little project there. And there's some of our MUTCD signage that I referenced earlier, and some of the painting again, which Mike is going to expand on later when we talk about that. And there's the sidewalk I discussed going into the park. If you could just keep it there a second, you'll notice that what we've done here for the ADA accessibility is we drop the curb lines there, and we include the truncated domes, which were really detection pads for blind folks when they're approaching the intersections, and those are also a requirement.
Again, what is that?
The truncated domes, the tile with a pattern in it. So
That's
you,
called the truncated domes, those things with the little bumpy.
right, the half bubbles on that are set into the tile, yeah. Okay, and then the last one would be the intersection of Croton.
Can I ask you a question? Does your book cover on those, putting a yellow stripe right in front of that?
A
So
yellow,
I will tell you that people who are autistic, children, because it's a park, yellow is a color that is recognized by kids with autism. That you put on steps, you just put at the edge of steps so they know where to go. I don't know why yellow is the color, but because it's a park, I'm wondering, I know you follow policies, rules and all that. Could you look into that? Because I know it's for handicap, but it's also.
yeah,
And I think that park also has a playground that's actually an accessible playground that was put in.
yeah, Bill just finished that this year,
I'd
yeah.
just be interested, because that's something that community centers now do on steps, is put the yellow band at the edge so that kids with autism.
I'll look into it.
And
That's new to
and
me. I will,
something on blindness with, anyway, I'm just asking a question. I'm not saying you should do it.
yeah, no, I'll look
unless
into it.
there's Something about that.
I'll look
Thank
into
you.
it. So this last intersection, I'm gonna leave a large part of it to Mike, and then we're gonna talk, let the lieutenant talk a little bit about some of the things that are gonna segue out of this discussion. This was a highly traversed intersection there, particularly when the school comes out with the high schoolers, when they walk down Linden Avenue to cross over to the Dale Avenue corridor. It's a really tough intersection. We examined this one with our consultant engineer on what would be best, and what we came up with. We're going to present some expanded thoughts, but the immediate thought was we certainly need to put a defined crosswalk across Croton Avenue, which didn't exist before, because that was probably used as much, if not more, than the crosswalks going east and west on Croton. So we redid those, and we also added new ones to cross Croton Avenue. And again, those have the they have the truncated domes, they have the appropriate signage there. And although it's not in this picture, there is also advanced signage to go along with the striping that you see with those upside down triangles, which indicate that you have to yield to the pedestrian in the crosswalk. But about the painting and some of the things that went along with that, because it's a state road, I want to turn it over to Michael Duffy a little bit to talk about how he handled that.
Sorry, Paul, before Mike comes in the mic, I guess just a general question for me, which is fantastic with the work that you guys have done. So in regards to the signage, during the day works. At night, sometimes not so much. So my question to you is, what is the possibility to add? Because I've seen signs in other municipalities and other locations where they have a solar panel concept with flashing lights, with a button that you can press that actually traffic can see it, that someone is going in there. Can that be installed in this, especially in this intersection? Because this is one of the most, crazy intersections that we have so far, and one of the most dangerous that we have a lot of complaints. So signage wise, can that be introduced on this particular case?
Yeah, we considered that. We actually discussed it with the engineer. When he was considering it, there's a template that he went through to see if it was justified to have those strobe lights, the solar powered strobe lights that were actuated by a pedestrian. This intersection did not have the call for it. I think it had a lot to based on the geometry and the straightaway and the approach and a lot of things that I can expand on with him and present to you at a later date. He felt that the the existing, the new signage that we placed here now that has the required reflectivity. It's like a diamond plated reflective coating that goes on these signs, so they become very illuminated when they get hit by a headlight. As far as illumination during the day or even illumination at night, the one thing we also talked about is not everyone's always going to press the button. So if a driver gets acclimated to driving and, well, if they don't see the strobes, that means no one's in the intersection, and they just kind of get accustomed to the flip side of that benefit, and someone crosses without hitting the strobes, it could give the wrong message that, oh, well, there's no one in the intersection. So we talked about it, and we went with the standard for now. Maybe it's something we consider, in addition to the fact that those are an increased cost to the improvement in the intersection. But certainly something we may consider down the road, and I think something that may even become part of our road diet, being that that's on a state road as well, with significantly more traffic for a longer period of time. But again, if I may go back to Mike Duffy, he's going to talk a little about the painting, and then we'll flip back to.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mike.
Just to add to what Paul just said and to answer your question, have you driven down there at nighttime, man?
I have several times. Yes.
It's bright.
Yeah. It is you know what the challenge in a lot of situations is people that wear dark colors, and it's hard to see them. So you see the reflection of the sign, but sometimes it's hard to tell.
Oh,
when
you're
someone is
talking
crossing.
people.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yes,
okay, okay.
yes. I'm talking about people. I'm talking about signs. Signs work perfectly, but the problem is, just like Paul said, when you cross in, and you're wearing dark colors, it's hard to tell at nighttime. So if you had that option to put a flashlight or flashing lights in there, I will leave it up to the pedestrian to have that ability to press that button, so people can actually see that that's happening.
Right.
That's all.
Okay.
But yeah, I have through all of them. Yes.
Okay. So like Paul started saying before, so these posts are also different posts. We went from a 2-inch to a 3-inch wide, top to bottom decorator. You can see the reflective strips on them. So they are very bright. The painting we had done through the New York State DOT, Croton Avenue from top to bottom is maintained by them inside anyway. So we had a connection. They came in, they did all the painting with no cost to the village. They did this intersection. They also did Elizabeth. But much of the do with this is thanks to Pascalino, Velardo, and some guys here. This was a lot of signage that had to go up in a pretty quick time, and there's a special way to put every one of these signs you see according to the MUTCD. So even the paint on the ground is through them, and I think they're using like an enamel. I think now they're using, and the glass beads. So it's very reflective at nighttime. Everything you see there. The ones he was talking about before, even the yield to pedestrian, is a white sign, 24 by 24. That's also a white strip. So it's very illuminated at nighttime. It's actually very sharp. I look at it that way. The Narragansett, we handled in-house, the painting. Couldn't get the state to go up that way. We tried to, but couldn't happen. And that's about it there. I mean, there's a lot of hard work we put into it with pride, and I can tell you this, I can add this to it, both Elizabeth and a lot of Linden people, kids, can't tell you how many people stopped us and said, thank you so much for this. Elizabeth as well. The people that walk across this from down, I don't know how many people that actually walked down from Elizabeth to Croton Avenue. There's quite a few people, but they do thank everyone for doing these two projects the way they did. So that's it.
I have to say that it's, I was away for like Thanksgiving, and I'm always driving around, and I was driving around, I think on Monday or Tuesday, and all of a sudden it really hit me how many signs you guys put up. And I almost, by the park, a lot of people with strollers, lots of people carrying baseball bats to walk back to the neighborhood. Those sidewalks, no fault of anyone, honestly, a little narrow. You got poles in the middle there and everything. I thought it looked great. And I always think these yellow signs are just so bright. And I felt like saying, why do we need so many? And then I realized, You've got to have them. It really makes people slow down and realize there are kids running around, people walking their dogs, all of the stuff, typical stuff going on. This intersection, as long as I've lived here, has been problematic. It's down a hill. People don't want to stop. They're trying to cut through. School, but I mean, it's got everything on it. It's also got stores. It's got seats. It's got everything. Parallel parking. All the whole thing. I think it's great. And when I finally saw, I was like, okay, it's bright. It's the crosswalk. Everything is exactly like we even forget what it used to look like at this point. That's how good it is. So appreciate all the work and how quickly it was done.
Thank you.
A quick question, Paul. First I want to add on the thank you. Oh, no.
No, it doesn't.
Here we go. How's this? So thank you, both of you and to the entire staff, because this is, I saw it when it was covered up with the garbage bags on the signs, and I texted Karen. I was like, what is this? What's going on here? And Karen let me know, and I was thrilled because I live right around here. I drive these streets every day, and you take your life into your hands trying to make this cross here, whether you're a pedestrian or in a vehicle. So thank you to everyone for that. My question is, there's a parking spot right in front of the pharmacy. Is that parking spot blocked off? And I ask because as you're coming up Linden, if you want to make the right, if there's a car parked there, it's very difficult to see oncoming traffic. And so you kind of like, oh, I hope like.
Okay, so what I'm going to talk about next is like a perfect segue into what we want to talk about.
Ringer.
Right, so,
okay.
We worked this out beforehand.
But before we do that, I do want to say that Mike, the relationships which the mayor always references with outside entities are oh so important. And Mike's relationship with DOT was the reason that they came in and did that work gratis for us, and they will continue to do that. So that's a good thing. The second thing is we just sent down to the treasurer's office a good part of the concrete bill associated with this from our annual bidder. We pulled from our CHIPS grant that we get from the state every year. So that's a good part of this project too, because CHIPS isn't just paving, it's any right of way work, which I think you all know by now because I say that a lot. So with regard to these, this intersection and up the street at Clinton, to another heavily critiqued intersection where you only have stop signs on the one way, we explored them with the police department. And we have some other considerations for this intersection. But before we do that, I'm going to let the lieutenant speak a little bit about some of the research that he's done with these two intersections, and then bring it back to Lower Linden and Croton to talk about what we want you guys to allow us to consider.
Before the lieutenant goes in, so we which is fantastic, the work that you have done, Mike. Thank you for all the work that you guys have done. Please don't take that as a criticism in regards to the signs. I think it's just a safety issue for me as well. But so we are talking about pretty much from Crown Avenue or Highland Avenue up right now. Have you guys looked into the downtown area, Spring Street, State Street? You are working on James right now, but there's other intersections in there as well.
I'm glad you said that. I was going to kind of skip over this because I know it's a very long meeting, and we were trying to fly through this. But I will tell you that just off the top of my head, I could tell you that Lower Main and State Street, Secor Road and Hunter, Lower Spring Street at the turn are three areas that we're going to do improve signage for the crosswalks, and on Lower Spring Street for the traffic, including curve ahead signs and some directional arrows to indicate what's coming on. And again, I'm going to say that a couple of those that I just mentioned were initiated by residential calls into the office. Not even complaints, just questions like, hey, I'm wondering, I live here, or I just moved in, I was wondering. And not to admit guilt or wrongdoing here, but any of us in public work, sometimes we get acclimated and you don't even think that you're missing something because you drive by it so many times, and then all of a sudden Mike and Pasqualino, who I think they still like me, but I'm just hitting them constantly with, oh, you forgot one over here, you gotta do one over here. And now they're flipping the script and they're calling, and Mike just texted me 2 pictures today. He's like, we don't have a crosswalk sign over on Secor. And we just did that a couple of years
Wait,
ago.
So I have to call him directly
No,
to address my concerns?
no, you need to call the manager's office. That's who you need to call.
So Mike can make this happen, because I
Yeah.
have made concerns about different intersections through the years. But I'm glad that
Yeah.
those are hopefully being addressed now.
Yeah, so we're plotting through it, just like we did with, parking, and we're doing it now with intersections, and it's just very methodical. We have a very, if you saw a robust request on our sign budget and the operating budget, and then we're gonna look to spend it again next year, and we're gonna keep going. So getting back on track, the lieutenant's gonna discuss some of his research on these two intersections.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Just want to start off saying it's been a pleasure working with these two gentlemen. We have a very open line of communication. Anytime they need something, they call me, vice versa. If we need, if I get complaints from citizens coming into my office, I can call Paul and Mike and say, hey, listen, I'm getting a problem over here. How can we brainstorm this? How can we work on it? So this began, Paul and Mike called me, asked me about Clinton Avenue and the possibility of making it a 4-way stop instead of a 2-way stop. So I went out and looked at it with them, and we discussed some options. And I went and did a little digging just to see. I mean, I was a lifelong resident up here until I was 35. I'm 48 now, so I grew up here my whole life. Worked here for 18 years. I've seen a lot of things here, both working and as a citizen. But Clinton and Linden Avenue, I pulled data from the last 5 years. So from 2019 until now, we've had 27 accidents there. And of the 27 accidents, 18 of the 27 were right angle accidents, indicating that vehicles were coming in, colliding in opposite directions. So I think that the stop signs that were implemented there should improve that. Additionally, this intersection here that we're looking at on the slide that's up, we spoke about that. What we were looking at this, we looked into that down there on Croton and Linden, and that intersection historically has just been, as you guys mentioned, it's been a problem. I know they've looked at putting traffic lights in there. There's studies that have shown that if we put a traffic light, it's going to back traffic up the hill. It's a blind corner.
Too close.
Yeah, it's just a mess. One of my sergeants had mentioned to me a while ago, maybe we should consider making that a one-way street. It would ease a lot of it. So we're looking into the possibility of making Lower Linden, so Linden Avenue from Croton Avenue down to Dale Avenue, one way going down the hill. I pulled some data from that, and at Croton and Linden since 2019 till now, we've had 28 accidents, so one more accident than we've had at up the hill at Clinton Avenue, and 17 of them were from vehicles entering the roadway from coming up Linden Avenue from Dale Avenue. A lot of people going through that intersection are trying to avoid the light at Dale Avenue. They're trying to get, have a shortcut through, and it's just an odd angle. You're coming up the hill, people are coming down the hill. It's very difficult sometimes with the sun glare to see there. I think if we restrict the traffic there and maybe make it a 3-way intersection instead of a 4-way travel of intersection, it would benefit it.
So, so the ask tonight is for us two things. One, the stop signs that we plan on making a 4-way intersection of Clinton and Linden. We'll give them, like we did with the other stop signs that we added to Stewart's office, to make a resolution out of it. And once it's passed, we'll reveal those stop signs. And I think that 4-way intersection is going to go a long way into ridding the aforementioned accidents. Down here with Lower Linden, we would like to do, I guess, making it analogous to what we did on Spring Street. If you go back far enough, Spring Street at the Main Street intersection was a 2-way street, and then they made it a 1-way street 30, 40 years ago, plus or minus. And then we flipped back to that about 7 years ago, after a planning board and the comp study came along designating those lots and how they were going to get developed. And one of the things to consider was making Spring Street 2-way. And we went back to that. And I think it works well. So when the lieutenant and I were discussing the intersection along with the engineer that helped us lay out the crosswalk signage and the ADA ramps, the engineer thought that that's also a good idea, to take away that fourth leg coming into the intersection. There's obviously going to be an action reaction. Folks who come into the intersection, most people avoid it now, right? Because they know it's tough. Even though we eliminated the parking in front of the pharmacy, sometimes like just coming down here, there was UPS truck there today, it happens. The collateral benefits of allowing us to test a one-way direction on Lower Linden going down to Glen and Dale is that you could possibly consider, there's a lot of curb cuts, but you could consider some additional parking there. And maybe even at that point, since you have the additional parking ability, to consider an overnight parking consideration for the entity that owns that building on the corner, who's asked for overnight parking there multiple times of this board. And just general parking during the day, if you don't allow for the overnight, could also be considered on that street now with additional parking that you'd be able to create, because the road is wide enough to do that on both sides and have one-way traffic going down to Glen. The signage would not be a big expense. It was basically consist of two one-way signs down below and 2 do not enter signs down below. And then at the top of the hill, same thing, and maybe a couple of no right turns coming out of some of the commercial lots on that road. So it's something that I think we'd like to do, but we did want to run it past the board because it is something that is going to get critiqued by the public. Obviously, if you did it, we would sign it and then do all the public outreach that we did, or try to do as much public outreach and notification as we can, similar to Spring Street, where we had a temporary sign alerting people that this is now a one-way. And we did some social media outreach, etc. Same thing, I think, here. Although it's not maybe as grandiose as making Spring Street back to two-way, it's still pretty busy corridor. And I think it basically does eliminate that concern of people pulling up Linden onto Croton, which, as you heard the lieutenant say, was the overwhelming balance of accidents that happen at that intersection.
Wouldn't it inconvenience people who live on that stretch getting to their houses?
We considered that. I could tell you that that particular stretch is primarily commercial. You get to the bottom of it and it turns residential. There's a couple of houses that I guess are still on Lower Linden. But then you get to Glen, so you still be able to, make the Glen swing onto Lower Linden to get to Dale. We're just saying making it one way to where Glen and Lower Linden meet.
It'd make my life worse, but I think it would be for the greater good. So you probably hear people from my house calling to complain, but they don't watch these meetings, so it's fine.
Favor of all the improvements, and you guys have done a yeoman's job. Good
Thank you.
job.
Oh, let me say one more thing before we talk about that again. When I was talking about James, I failed to mention that Mayor, you mentioned a lot about social media outreach and notification for when we do inconvenience residents when we do paving work. I could tell you that between the police department's issuance of the Nixle and some of the things we've done on our page, and then the old-fashioned hand-delivered notes on the windshield wipers and the doors, James Street more or less went off without a hitch. So did a few of our other road projects. We haven't had a lot of complaints. I don't think the managers had a lot of complaints from James Street, and we've done tremendous amount of disturbance down there. Tremendous amount of disturbance, and we have not really heard any peeps. So I think that's gone a long way, and I think a lot of it has to do with the advanced notification with the Nixle and the signage and the posting and everything, primarily done by the police department. So we thank them for that. And even when folks don't hear about it, they also coordinate the tow trucks, which come and move the 2 or 3 people that did not hear about this somehow. And we just leave it right around the corner, and it's usually without issue.
Yeah, I'm laughing because that's exactly because I live in the Spring Street and I drive that neighborhood every day, and there were signs all over the place.
Yeah.
But yet there were a few people that for some reason, first of all, one of them parked within the no parking area right next to the stop sign.
Yeah.
Where they should not be parking in the first place. And 2, a sign was literally right there. It says not to park. So that's the part that
It
baffles me,
happens.
that sometimes people just ignore that portion, but I agree with you, Paul, and the police department and the DPW, they did a fantastic job on James. I have not heard anything about positive things. That being said, I want to go back to Linden and Clinton and Linden and Glen Street. So I'm in favor of doing that one way. I just think it's gonna get too complex because it isn't a Y intersection. And if you have a one-way street coming from Linden, you know, if you come from Glen Street to Linden, that you cannot go up, that means that you just made a U-turn on that one. So I was thinking maybe just make it, maybe it will affect Omar. But make Glen and Linden all the way just down a one-way street. Because that will eliminate a lot of the headaches that you guys will encounter with people going the wrong way. And believe me, people will go the wrong way on the small strip of that. That's my concern on that one. I agree that something needs to happen, but I'll let you guys decide that and obviously.
Well, we talked about, we do want to maintain that ability to circle either way on Glen, make the right off of Dale onto
Yeah,
Glen.
I
make-
just think it's gonna get too confusing for a lot of people in there.
Well,
Maybe they'll get used to it. You know, I'm hoping they'll get used to it, but
That may put a damper on the bus company. Because that's
Do they
when
use it?
when I spoke to Jim Manahan about a couple of things.
oh, you're talking
He
about the
asked-
school
Yes, the buses had to come up and around there, so that wouldn't be a great idea.
for the schools?
Yeah, because the buses don't like to go across that strip down there. So
Okay,
they come in the bottom loop.
gotcha, okay.
And I'm glad he mentioned that because we do alert the school district whenever we do this work too. So they know that their buses should anticipate either delay or detour. And we did talk about Lower Linden with him and he said that does not impact any of the routes.
Okay, fair
So-
enough. So now, my concern on Linden and Clinton, and I used to live in Linden when I first came to this country, so I know exactly, and I was like 3 houses away from that intersection. My concern is putting another stop in there, which will be awesome. The problem is, it's a hill. And when the weather is bad, and if you put a stop there, some people may not have enough time to stop.
Well,
Have you guys, I mean, I'm asking, because I don't know how will that work on something.
I had
like
the
a
same
situation like
concern
that.
too. I used to
Yeah.
live at the top of that hill.
I'm not answering a question with a question, but you have primarily entire village is a hill and there's stop signs at the bottom of a lot of hills.
No, but this one is, look, Underhill,
Yeah.
and obviously, and literally, I seen a lot of accidents happen because of that, and I get it, and I totally understand that,
Yeah.
but we're trying to make it a safe condition.
I get it.
You know, I don't know if we are hurting that portion by putting a stop. I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
you.
the onus is on us at that point to make sure that that road in the winter time is properly cleared and salted. So you are able to stop. And again, similar to what we do. I mean, on Trustee White's Ellis Place is no picnic coming on the Route 9, but that, you know, you have to stop there. That's a decent incline coming into there. Underhill is the big one. You know, coming down Eastern is another one. You have to come down that entire hill. Comes down into Croton Avenue on a hill, Bellevue, stop sign. You know, again,
Yeah, for some reason, I picture that a lot stiffer than the angle itself is a lot worse than the other intersections. I'm
Well-
not saying that there's not, I'm just saying the intersection itself is just in an incline itself, which is, I don't know.
So just to touch on that intersection, I believe that'd be a very welcomed area for stop signs.
Mhm.
Especially people traversing Linden Avenue. Especially you going southbound. To look right, even if you think it's clear, you're like, whew, and you stick your nose out. You don't just go,
you're right.
you know, so slowing that down, up and down the hill, positive.
Yeah, agreed. And it not only is this, we're probably gonna double sign it. We already put double stop signs in, which were, you know, MBTCD dictates if you have
You're
that.
talking about double, I'm sorry, Paul, what double sign? Can you explain that to me?
So you'll see stop signs on both sides of the road when you're approaching. So it's on the left side and the right side, even though it's a two-way road, you still have a double sign. just to draw like super attention to it. Not only because it's a new area that we're doing that to, but because it's an area where you have an incline and you have a history of speeds and you have a history of accidents.
Will that be a flashing sign just like is the one in Linden?
Well, the one that's there now, I think we'll just keep. The other ones will be reflectivity again, with the double signage with the reflective strip on the U pole that we use to install that. We're also going to put stop ahead where we can. One thing I will tell you, a lot of these installations have initiated phone calls. Residents don't really like signs in front of their parcel that they might not think are necessary to have. We are sympathetic to that, and we're also respectful of that. But they have to be placed. Yeah.
10 o'clock.
Yeah, is that like my hook?
Yes, actually.
Yeah. They have to be replaced they have to be placed according to guidelines. So that's why we put them there. It's not because this house looked like it has a better place for a sign than that house. They're 100 feet. Crosswalks, no parking is 30 feet from a crosswalk. If there's a stop sign, there's a whole myriad of things that we use to place these signs. And yes, so thank you for your support on that intersection. And I think I have support experiencing it with Linden.
That was your sign, Paul.
Yeah.
Well, it sounded, I mean, I didn't say anything, but it sounded like there is a majority thumbs up on this, Dana. Yeah. Okay, so it does sound like everything you requested. It sounds like, I feel like somehow
He turned it down because there was too much.
there was a lot of, a lot of echo. It sounds like you've gotten a yes on your requests, and I'm sure we will be getting some emails, etc. I would say the police has to be informed when you're done, because one of the key elements of this is actually enforcement, because we have too many cars who drive by 10 times a day through the same intersection, cabs, cars, vans, and they sort of just roll through the street. They don't really want to hit the brakes. Forget the snow. I'm just talking like regular. So I think we're gonna, since you're standing here, we need to go back to police when they're done, and there's gotta be at least a month of education. You stop and say next time it's a ticket, something, because that's the only way people really change. It's a hilly, I say this all the time, we're on the side of a cliff. That's all there is. I can't even get out of my driveway half the time. So, did you want to say something?
A super quick point. Barely related to this, but I have not found the forum to mention this particular issue that I have had, which is the days that are some of my favorite people in the village. DPW folks are collecting all of the trash and recycling all of this. It's super unclear to me what the protocols are for drivers around them, because people are zooming past these garbage trucks and the guys are kind of like playing Frogger around this thing. So I don't know if it's like a mayor's message thing or if it's like, but as we're talking about traffic calming in these intersections, I want to put that out there for these particular folks that we have on staff.
Thank you for that. I'll be super brief of my answer. I will tell you that a few years ago, we adopted the Slow Down to Get Around campaign.
Yeah.
That was
We put them in the trucks.
yes, we placarded the trucks. You'll notice that the gateway to wherever we have our speed limit sign, gateway signage, that's a requirement. Whenever you pull into the village, there's a slow down to get around sign mounted there as well. At the end of the day, and maybe the lieutenant wants to expand on it, you're technically not allowed to jump over double yellow no matter what. But our garbage men are very courteous, as you know. They realize what they're doing, but they also realize they have their job to do. So it's a discretionary thing. They let the cars go by, they pick up some garbage. They let some cars go by, they pick up the garbage. Someone is going to be the person that, hold on a minute. And sometimes that person doesn't want to hold on and they do speed. And I will tell you, we've had vehicle employee collision, and it's not something that anybody wants to happen. I don't think anybody does it on purpose, but I appreciate you bringing that to the public forum, because there is, unfortunately, I'm going to say by a very few, a level of lack of consideration for people trying to do their job just because you might have left a little late for the train. Not a good look. So thank you for that.
Okay, anything else, Paul?
No, just the
Okay,
filter.
gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate it. I see Supervisor Feldman is here. Are you here for a specific? You're visiting?
I'm here, but I'm having trouble with the grant portal.
Okay, so
Thank
nothing that
you,
we're
everyone.
discussing tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. So.
Andy?
On our next agenda item is a discussion on the Indian Brook Water Treatment Plant. We have a pending bond resolution as well as a design service contract from Hazen and Sawyer that is part of the existing cost estimate. But we do need to have that we will have a resolution on that and the bond resolution on next week. So we are providing some background on that, and I'd like to turn.
Before you do that, can we, do we have to do the Quimby East parking tonight or can that wait? We're running late and we have a very long exec session.
It should be done tonight because we want to get the spots taken care of to have a local law before you next week, before the public hearing on the 20th.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're into the new year.
I'll make my pitch on a minute or less.
No, it's just I'm trying to, we had a very.
And I'll be
long
brief
presentation
there.
About cannabis earlier from the news store. Okay, no, I don't want to cheat anybody because they're later on in the agenda. I'm simply asking if we can move a couple of things. The answer was no. Okay,
All right, good evening.
good evening.
I have Mike Broder, who's the vice president of Hazen and Sawyer in the crowd here in case any questions come up,
Hello there.
but I think most of them I can answer. Hazen and Sawyer provided us a proposal for design services during construction. So being that they were the design engineers, they're responsible for when the plant is constructed, that the questions, the RFIs, any field drawings, final design questions would all be answered by Hazen and Sawyer. As you know, Arcadis is managing the construction. Hazen and Sawyer would be managing these questions and anything related to the design. So it's providing project management, field meetings, shop drawing reviews, requests for clarification, deviation, change orders, startup testing for when 37 months out, when the plant's built, they provide staff to help start up the plant. O&M, which is operation and maintenance manuals for training assistants, and then record all the drawings as built. It's $2,625,000. The original design called for, from 2016 was 350 drawings, and after the plant was redesigned, it's up to 960 drawings. So it's total change of scope on their end, but if we're gonna move forward with the plant, we need to have the resolution for this.
So I never know how I'm getting tired.
So-
I never know how I'm supposed to decide and vote.
So I want to just reframe. This is a cost that has already been in the estimate that is for the total project. So it's not a new cost, it's not an incremental cost to the total that we're doing the bond resolution for tonight. However, because the contract needs my signature and it is over $15,000, the board needs to vote on that by resolution. But I just want to caveat, this is not an additional incremental add-on. It's something that was in the budget. It's just, this is now we're executing the contract now.
So I never know how to actually vote on the amounts. I trust that you guys 2.8 million sounds like a lot. So it's always weird.
Yeah.
I'm never interested in how many drawings are done because one could argue they probably made mistakes and had to redo them, etc. This is a lot about trust that you guys are managing the village's money appropriately, and this is why I'm going on the record of saying that, and that we've been through a lot of mistakes in the sense of like, we didn't know, we did this, we did that, wrong vendor, right vendor, but I feel pretty strongly that we're at a point now where we've gone through learning curves and we're like on our way
We're
here.
dialed in.
Yes, it feels like that to me, having sat in this chair for a while. People will hear 2.8 and go, what? And is it a one-time charge? Is it ongoing, etc.? So I'm assuming this is not an RFP. This is like it.
This is it.
They
This is
have to
their,
come in on this and it's on them.
yes, and actually Mike is the guy who will sign the final drawings. It's under his license. If you don't mind, if Stuart can give a little history on timelines of where we are with this project now.
No,
No, we don't
It's-
need it.
we don't need it.
Okay.
So I
We
do
don't
have.
need that. That's.
Okay.
So I do want to say, Karen, thank you for sending that information over with the contracts. Andy, before that email went out to us, I had a few questions, but
Go
I
ahead.
answered a lot of the questions that
Right.
I had. So in reality, it's, to me, all this stuff was answered by the email and by seeing the agreement portion of it. So I do
Right.
thank you for that. So I know you like to talk about that stuff. I think it's gonna be an awesome project, but I don't have any questions.
Okay, good.
So
All right, that's big.
That. Run, run, Andy, run.
You're good?
Bob,
Okay.
folks on this side, is everybody all right? Okay, thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
I'm sorry you sat here the whole night for this, but maybe we should start texting people more. I feel a little bit bad about having.
Maybe I
to
should
sit
have
here
some questions then.
For
So
3 hours. But okay. Thank you all. Next. Yes, but you still don't get a lot of time. Thank you. Bye, Liz. Oh, excuse me. We approved the veterans piece that our historian showed. I was told that you're doing a similar program in the town, or that's with the same vendor.
It's a standardized, I think it's a standardized program.
But you're doing
throughout.
similar to us.
We'll
Yeah.
talk, we'll coordinate.
Absolutely, we would want to coordinate the same.
Great, well, thank you. It was approved tonight, so
Beautiful,
thank you. It'll be great.
thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
1 minute or
I'll-
less.
1 minute or less, ready, go. So the board remembers, earlier this year, I believe we changed the Quimby Street East, which is the tiny little lot on Water Street, across from 30 Water Street, from commuter permit parking into a variety of things, one of which is to allow for muni night permits so that folks in the neighborhood have an off-street place to put their car. And at first, no one was really using it. Now there's a couple folks using it. But certainly not 36 people using it. At the same time, we have heard from a couple of the businesses in the Station Plaza area, admittedly most enthusiastically Westchester Collaborative Theater, asking if some accommodation could be made so that people who come to see productions there have some place in that lot that they can park for a few hours. Specifically, in speaking with Mr. Lutwin, he mentioned that it tends to be at times an elderly crowd. So some handicap spaces and ones closer to the venue's doorway would be preferable. So my recommendation to the board would be as such. We have a parking passport zone in that parking lot. I would now divide the parking lot into two different zones so that people in the neighborhood could still be able to park there overnight, and there'd be dedicated spaces for them, but that people who are visiting local businesses in the evening hours would also have some place that they could park, $1 an hour through their phone only. And we could certainly tweak the hours as we go going forward, but it would be off hours from the train station, so 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Mr. Lutwin thought that as many spaces as possible would be helpful to him. I recommended 11 spaces along the fence line, but he would ask the board to also consider on the other side of the lot an additional 8 spaces. So I leave that up to the board. We can make it work with either or both.
I'm confused. Is it free till a certain time? What's the deal?
No, so
That's what he really wants. He wants it free.
he wants it free, but that's not what we're proposing. So it would still be Monday through Friday. You pay the $4.75 to park in any of those spots, and then you can park there for the whole day. So that's people going to the train station. After 7 p.m., right now you can use your muni permit to park there. This would bifurcate that group. So you could use your muni permit on half of the lot. The other half of the lot would be $1 an hour. so that people who are going to Here Coffee, for example, or one of the restaurants could also have someplace secure to park their car. The longer linear lot that's in the train station, it's sort of silent in our code about whether you can park there overnight. We're taking the position that you really can't because you're supposed to have a commuter permit to park in that parking lot at all times. So this would allow people to have some place where they know for certain they're not going to get a ticket if they're visiting a
So if
restaurant
you
in the
went to
evening.
a show at the theater,
Mhm.
there are a couple of hours, the show. I forgot what the occupancy rate is. It's not very high. I'm gonna talk to Alan and say to him, the average age is my age. I don't appreciate being called elderly, but I'm okay.
Those are my words, not his, but he
Okay.
did mention
But I
mobility
will
issues.
say,
in
so you're
particular.
telling me it's gonna cost somebody a couple of bucks?
Mhm.
So
$1
if
an
they
hour.
go, well, the shows are no more than 2 hours, so $2. Same thing here, coffee isn't really open late at night, so.
They do
it's-
some events sometimes,
Oh,
on
that's a good
weekends and
point.
stuff, so.
But you could park 10 yards away in the train parking lot for 2 or 3 hours for free.
I'm not convinced that that's the case. Our code is silent on it, and we don't want to give people bad advice, so
I see what you're saying. I just.
we'd
thought
rather
that
have
after
very
6
explicit rules.
Okay, after
to-
6 PM, I always thought there's nobody
So
parking
there's a
there.
total-
They can use that.
There's
But
a
that's
total of
okay.
36 spots, you said?
36 in that lot, so I'm recommending the 11 along the
Right.
fence line. And then because we have some signage issues and we need to not make it super confusing for people, if the board wanted to do an additional 8 spots, I would have it be the wraparound, so the other side that's closer to the Metro North building. So everything around the outside would be hourly and everything in the inside would be the Muni night permit. Or the board could just say 11 spots is sufficient.
I see. It's additional 8. It's 11.
Right, 11
what-
plus 8.
you're
or-
11 or
specifying it-
19.
Right, 11 or 19. Okay, anybody have thoughts on this topic?
So I'm okay with the concept. I just don't feel that this is only for a particular business, sure.
It's not.
We have to make sure that that is very clear,
Mhm.
to this particular business that, if I'm in a restaurant on Main Street or
Yeah.
on any other business within that cluster, I can be able to park there.
Yeah, no, they're not dedicated spots at all. They're still
Okay.
Village of Ossining
So
spots.
that's-
First come, first serve.
Coffee is there, the deli is there.
No, but it's
The
literally.
bar around
no,
the corner is there.
No,
Yeah.
again, so the parking lot, the future dispensary will be
Will
there.
be there. yeah.
Well, which is, again, is not next to it, it's around the corner.
Right.
So it's not easy accessible if I'm,
No, I
if
know
I'm here,
exactly where it is. yeah.
I will have to walk. It's convenience for this particular business in this case, but again, if I'm willing to put this going forward, at least my board,
Right.
I want to make sure that this is not dedicated just for them.
Couldn't
I wanna
be.
Make sure that
Can't be.
they understand that.
We will reiterate, but I think also, I don't know how frequently they're doing, evening
Shows,
production. It might
yeah.
be a couple a year. At this point, I'm not really sure of their calendar, but, certainly it would be first come, first serve. That's, just like any other municipal spot.
Betty, the people who are parking there, for the residents who are parking there, this is not necessarily taking away the, I just want to caveat that.
Nope. And we know that, at the beginning, there were, I think maybe one resident of the neighborhood who was availing themselves of the lot. Now there's maybe 5 or 6. And certainly, as we go forward, we could rebalance. If then the neighborhood decides, no, we really need this parking, then
you
we could, sort
But
of
the
swing that
proximity
other
of the
way.
spaces that you're proposing against the wall are also the ones closest to where a resident, is the proximity of the space. The proximity of the spaces for the resident should be the priority, I guess.
It's a difference of about 10 feet. And
Okay.
because mobility issues were brought up, we're also recommending that 2 of the spaces be ADA.
It
Yeah,
can't,
but you can put ADA closest on those 11 and everything else gonna be the other side. It doesn't have to be.
I am
closer, no?
open to whatever the board suggests. I'll say again, residents, maybe 5 or 6 a night are parking the lot. I think there's going to be room for everybody. I don't think this is something to get hung up on, but
Yeah.
certainly if the board says, no, we want it to be the.
the theater
the side-
itself, if you're that disabled that you can't do the 10 feet, you can't actually even go up into the theater.
So
So I'm fine with the recommendation. What did you want to say?
I'm in favor of the 11 along the wall.
I see.
All right,
Okay.
and let's start with that.
You wanna
That's
start
my
there?
opinion, and it
I
could always
think once
change.
30 water comes in and people have guests and people who live there have guests, a birthday party for a child or a parent or whatever, 2 to 3 hours for $2 to $3 is totally reasonable. And that would allow them to be there, but that's 4 years away. That's not today. We have time for that. So I'm fine with you. You want to do 11? You want to go 11?
No, I'm.
You wanna
okay
go
with it.
18?
No, I'm
Where are
good
you?
with 11. I think there's
Okay.
room for the ADA handicaps in that area. 'Cause
Well,
there's
there's a
some room
couple
in
in
there,
front,
so
right?
yeah.
And you're okay? You're okay? All
And
right.
again, this is very easily reversible. So if we decide this
Well,
isn't the
that's
right
it. I
mix, we
think-
can
I mean,
easily.
and again, so we have 57 more or less parking spaces within 4 years from now, when 30 Water
30
Street.
has 40.
Is it 40?
40.
I thought it was 57.
No.
43?
No, it's 40 something. Yeah.
Okay, so 40
Just
something
that lot,
on the,
Yeah.
on our lot,
It-
so.
in just that lot.
You're
No,
talking
no.
about at
No,
30
no,
Water
no.
Street, the
No,
layer of the
30
parking
Water-
garage.
Water Street, 40 spots.
It's 40 spots?
40, maybe, yes, 43.
Okay, so 43 parking spots in the next 4 years that will be added
Added,
to
but
the
there'll be more
community
people too.
itself, so.
Yeah.
Oh. But those are dedicated to
Yeah.
something else.
We're always evolving. It's,
Yeah,
you
look,
know,
I think that for the past few years, it looks like that's a parking spot for the theater. I've had people call me and I keep saying it's not their parking. Or they don't pay. It's just happens to be. We had 2 years of COVID, we had this, we had that. It's not private parking there. So it never has been. I think this is fine. I think it's a good compromise. It's a good solution. It seems the whole board is going with your recommendation. 11 is what it sounds like, and then we'll adjust as needed.
Including ADA.
yes, 288 plus 9, non-ADA, 11 total.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What else?
Real fast, 172 North Highland, tax certiorari, 4 years, total owed $1,454.04. We'll have a resolution next week.
Thank you.
Okay, very nice. Okay,
You could have gone first.
no, I don't think so.
Do we have a motion to adjourn to executive session for matters of personnel? I think it's just matters of personnel at this point.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It is 10:24. We're gonna be back next Wednesday, as you just heard, for another meeting, and meeting's adjourned. All right.